Chapter 1474. You're really straightforward. Well, come with me. Let's get some elixirs first. The second in charge gave Nie Xiaoyu a thumbs up, untied her, stood up and walked out of the door. In the second in charge's view, since Nie Xiaoyu was already a member of Heaven and Earth Association, there was no need to tie her up. Besides, he had to supervise her cultivation at any time and any place in the future, so it was more reassuring to keep her by his side. After all, this matter was specially ordered by the leader, and no mistakes could be allowed. Wait a minute. Nie Xiaoyu suddenly thought of something and shouted hurriedly. What's wrong now? Are you going to go back on your words so soon? The second in charge turned his head and stared at her unhappily. No, I have an acquaintance who is also locked up in your cell. Can you release her as well? She is very smart and maybe she can also cultivate with me and improve her strength. Nie Xiaoyu thought of Cheng Menjing who was still locked up, so she wanted to ask if she could help her. An acquaintance? You mean the little girl who was just locked up today? The second in charge frowned and asked. Yes, her name is Cheng. Just as Nie Xiaoyu was about to introduce her, she was interrupted by the second in command. No, she doesn't meet the requirements of our mission. Besides, I didn't catch her, so I can't let her out yet. Ah? Then why was she captured? Nie Xiaoyu was slightly taken aback and asked tentatively. That's not what you need to worry about now. The second in charge's face darkened, and he refused to answer Nie Xiaoyu's question. Looking at her disappointed face, he thought for a while and said, But you don't have to worry. Our Heaven and Earth Association still has rules for prisoners. As long as that little girl doesn't do anything out of line, we won't do anything to her. That's good. Please make an exception for my friend, Senior, and arrange it more appropriately for him. Nie Xiaoyu was a little helpless, but she had no choice but to give up. Otherwise, if she persisted, she might lose her chance as well. She had to wait until she became stronger and had more power to speak before rescuing Miss Cheng Menjing. Nie Xiaoyu was a timid person, and she didn't dare to take the initiative to make requests. In addition, she had no experience in dealing with strangers, so she immediately gave in after being threatened by the second in charge. In fact, as long as she thought about it carefully or probed a little more, she would understand that the second head keeper actually valued her quite a lot. If she could take this opportunity to insist on some conditions that were not too harsh, the second head keeper would basically agree. Unfortunately, Nie Xiaoyu didn't realize this, so she missed this good opportunity to fight for benefits. Well, I see. I'll help you inform him. You don't need to call me Senior. Just call me second in charge. Seeing that Nie Xiaoyu was obedient, the second in charge nodded with satisfaction. He took the lead to leave the room and walked in the direction of the pharmacy. When they arrived at the pharmacy, the second in charge took the lead to walk in. At first glance, he saw that the pharmacy manager was sleeping soundly with his head buried in the counter. The second in charge immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. Wasn't it obvious that he was humiliating himself? He simply lifted his leg and kicked the pharmacy manager to the ground. He shouted angrily, "Damn it, are you a pig? Are you here to look after the pharmacy or to sleep?" The pharmacy manager rolled on the ground after being kicked. Just when he was about to flare up, he heard the second master's roar. He immediately shivered in fear and stood up at the fastest speed in his life. He bowed his head and apologized. I'm sorry, second master. I've been busy for a whole day. I didn't pay attention. Okay. I don't have time to listen to your explanation. Hurry up and take out all the top-grade elixirs in our pharmacy. The second in charge waved his hand and interrupted the manager's explanation. The pharmacy manager became spirited and hurriedly asked for instructions respectfully. Okay, no problem. What kind of elixirs do you need? Or you can just tell me the name of the elixirs and I'll help you find them right away. Although the steward also saw a young girl standing behind the second head, dressed in white and looking ghostly at this time, the second head was angry, so the steward didn't dare to ask anything. He didn't even dare to look at her again. How would I know the name of any elixirs? In any case, take out all the high-grade medicinal pills that can quickly improve your cultivation without any side effects. Oh, that's right. Also, take out some high-grade healing medicinal pills. Put them all on my account. The second leader knocked on the counter with a heroic look and ordered loudly. Take them all out? The manager was shocked. After hesitating for a long time, he said weakly, Second in charge, the elixirs stored in this warehouse are the trump cards of our Heaven and Earth Association. If we take them out, we can sell them for tens of millions of spirit crystals. If you only want a few kinds, I can still make the decision. But if you want to take them all at once, it's a bit difficult. I have to first ask for instructions from the great leader. Ask for instructions, my ass. Before the steward could finish his words, the second leader was furious. He swung his arm, raised his hand, and slapped the steward hard on the face. The slap made the steward spin on the spot. The great leader asked me to take these elixirs. The second in charge impatiently shouted. When he saw that the manager was still dizzy and didn't say anything, he glared at him and said, "What? You still don't believe me, boy? Why don't you take me with you and we go find the great leader to confront him?" "No. No need, second in charge, you're too serious. How could I dare not believe you?" The pharmacy manager was about to cry. In this short period of time he had already been kicked and slapped. If he insisted on asking for instructions from the great leader, wouldn't he be beaten again? Then why don't you hurry up? I'm in a hurry here. I don't have time to waste with you. The second in charge roared again with full strength. Please wait for a moment, I'll go get the elixirs now. I'll be done right away. The manager responded with a sullen face. Then he covered his red cheek with his left hand and took a big empty wooden box with his right hand. He walked to the shelf where the elixirs were placed and carefully identified the effects of the elixirs. Then he put all the elixirs that the second in charge mentioned into the wooden box. Nie Xiaoyu, who was following behind the second in charge, was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. She secretly wondered how powerful this world was. Just these elixirs could be sold at such a high price? Don't tell me they're running a pharmacy? Chapter 1475. Nie Xiaoyu heard from the manager who had been beaten into a pig's head that the elixirs in this place could be sold for tens of millions of spirit crystals. Previously, she and Li Xiener had asked about the salary of the workers in the Chamber of Commerce of Immortal Cultivators, and the salary was at most a few spirit crystals a day. The difference was simply too big. Surprised and curious about the background of the Heaven-Earth Association, Nie Xiaoyu left the pharmacy with the second in charge. She took a lot of elixirs and moved into a suite. The second in charge first taught Nie Xiaoyu the basic situation of the world of cultivation and explained the division of strength. Then he ordered her to cultivate in this room for the next few days and not to go out casually. If there was any situation or need, she should tell him in time, and he would find a way to solve it as soon as possible. The second in charge lived in the outer room, ready to monitor Nie Xiaoyu at all times and ensure her food and clothing. To put it bluntly, he was like Nie Xiaoyu's senior nanny. Although this kind of thing was very trivial, it was what the second in charge was used to doing. Since the great leader had ordered him to devote all his efforts to this matter, he would do his best to complete it. Nie Xiaoyu knew that the second in charge only lived in the outer room and would not come in to harass her, so she did not say anything more. She stayed in the room obediently and prepared to start cultivating. At this time, Nie Xiaoyu also had a belief in her heart. She wanted to raise her cultivation level as soon as possible so that she would have a greater say in the Heaven-Earth Association in the future. At that time she could find a chance to understand the background of the Heaven-Earth Association. In addition, Nie Xiaoyu also wanted to understand the reason why Cheng Menjing was caught. If possible, it would be best to release Miss Cheng, and then ask the Heaven-Earth Association to help find the whereabouts of Xiao Chen and the others, so that they could reunite as soon as possible. Thinking that she had so many things to do, Nie Xiaoyu felt a heavy burden on her shoulders. She did not dare to delay any longer. She calmed down and immediately began to cultivate. In an inn in Yaoxian County, Xiao Chen was leaning against a chair in boredom, chatting with Hong Zhu from time to time. Xiao Chen had been bored to death over the past few days. Every day he would use his divine sense imprint to observe Elder Nangong's movements. However, he discovered that ever since the old thing returned to the sect, he had not left at all. He had been hiding in his room all day as if he was studying his injuries. The reason for this deduction was because Xiao Chen discovered that Elder Nangong had secretly brought back a lot of heavenly treasures from the pharmacy. There were all sorts of medicines such as healing wounds, restoring cultivation, and even aphrodisiacs. However, no matter what medicinal herbs Elder Nangong used, the broken meridians in his body did not show any signs of improvement. After trying for a while, he almost gave up. He stayed in his room and circulated his mental cultivation method, hoping that one day his injuries would start to improve. At first, when Xiao Chen discovered this situation, he could not help but laugh inwardly. The injuries he inflicted on others were basically impossible to cure. This Elder Nangong was simply indulging in fantasy. Xiao Chen had originally planned to wait patiently for the young master to contact Elder Nangong. In his opinion, the entire headquarters of Yaoxian County had been burned to the ground by him, so the young master would definitely not be able to sit still and ask Elder Nangong about the situation. In this way he would be able to obtain more information without any effort. But unexpectedly, the young master seemed to have disappeared from the world. There was not the slightest movement from him, and besides eating and sleeping, Elder Nangong only drank medicine to treat his injuries. It seemed that he had no intention of contacting the young master at all, wasting several days of Xiao Chen's time. "Husband Xiao Chen, how much longer do we have to stay here?" Hongzhu sat on the bed, swinging his legs as he yawned and asked, "Besides cultivating, all I do is eat and sleep. It's really a bit boring. Has your matter been resolved yet? Who knows what's wrong with the young master? It's already been so many days, but he's still completely ignoring Elder Nangong." Xiao Chen also frowned helplessly and said, "We can't keep waiting like this. We can't keep wasting time on this kind of thing. We have to make some changes." At this thought, Xiao Chen could no longer sit still and stood up to change into a light set of clothes. Seeing this, Hongzhu immediately jumped down from the bed. He excitedly pulled Xiao Chen and asked, "Husband Xiao Chen, where are you going? Are you going to fight? Take me with you." "I'm not going to fight. I'm going to the Profound Cloud sect," Xiao Chen explained as he changed his clothes. "I want to directly find Elder Nangong and ask him about the situation. Since I can't find any new clues, I might as well go look for him myself. You don't have to follow me." "Why can't I go with you?" Hongzhu immediately pouted. She shook Xiao Chen's sleeves and said, "It's so dangerous for you to go alone. I'm worried, so I'll go with you. I can scare that old man Nangong so that he won't dare to lie." "Little Hongzhu, it's not that I don't want to take you with me, but you also know that the Profound Cloud sect is the second largest sect in the cultivation world. If something happens to me there, it'll be easier for me to escape alone. If I still have to take care of you when the time comes, both of us might die there." Xiao Chen shook his head and patiently advised. "But..." Hongzhu was somewhat swayed by Xiao Chen's words and a look of hesitation appeared on his face, but he was also a little unwilling. "Be good and listen to me. I reckon that I'll be back soon. Just stay in the room and wait for me to come back." Xiao Chen gently kissed Hongzhu's forehead, turned around and opened the door. Caught off guard, Hongzhu was kissed. His face flushed red as he rubbed his forehead. In his heart, he recalled that Xiao Chen had never treated him so gently before. For a moment he forgot to insist on following him. He casually said, "Then? All right then. You have to come back soon." After comforting Hongzhu, Xiao Chen left the inn and flew in the direction of the Profound Cloud sect on his flying sword. This time, other than asking Elder Nangong for information, Xiao Chen also wanted to investigate the strength of the Profound Cloud sect. After all, this was the second largest sect in the cultivation world. If he understood their situation, he would be able to have a rough gauge of the overall level of the cultivation world. After flying in the air for nearly half an hour, Xiao Chen's flying sword finally arrived in the sky above the Profound Cloud sect's territory. After hovering in the air for a while, Xiao Chen discovered that the security of the sect was very tight. Regardless of whether it was the periphery or the interior, there were a large number of guards patrolling the area. The defense could be said to be watertight. Chapter 1476. In order to hide his whereabouts and not be discovered, Xiao Chen set up a camouflage for himself and the flying sword in advance. If someone inadvertently looked up at the sky, they would only see a circling bird and would not notice anything strange at all. After making all the preparations, Xiao Chen gradually lowered his altitude and circled around the Profound Cloud sect. The Profound Cloud sect occupied a very large area. Trying to find a person inside was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Furthermore, Xiao Chen did not dare to release his divine sense to its maximum range. He could only carefully explore every area. Fortunately, he had just broken through and his essence was abundant, so he did not feel the pinch when he exhausted it. After searching for a long time, Xiao Chen finally found Elder Nangong's retreat in a two-story building at the back of the Profound Cloud sect. After determining the direction, he drove the flying sword and prepared to fly there. Just as Xiao Chen took a breath before he could control the flying sword to glide, he suddenly heard the warning voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor in his mind. "Xiao Chen, are you stupid? Just take a look and observe. Why do you want to go down and take a look? Do you think this is a market or a street garden? You can stroll around whenever you want?" Hearing the voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, Xiao Chen suddenly stopped the flying sword. He touched his nose and smiled embarrassedly. "I just want to look for Elder Nangong. It should be fine, right? Moreover, you see that I have been very reserved. I did not release my divine sense wantonly. I have also made sufficient preparations to disguise myself. I only plan to ask him some questions and leave. I don't want to fight with anyone. Do you think it is up to you to decide whether to fight or not? Hurry up and go. The Elder Heaven Ancestor urged again. I am not scaring you. With your cultivation, if you go down and are discovered, you will die. There are many mountain opening stage experts in the sect. I just took a casual glance and found a peak opening stage expert in charge. If you go, you won't be able to come back. It turned out that when Xiao Chen had just arrived in the sky above the Profound Cloud sect, Elder Tian had already discreetly investigated the situation of the sect. Seeing that Xiao Chen was really planning to enter the sect, he spoke up to stop him, in case Xiao Chen did something stupid due to a moment of carelessness. Alright, I'll listen to you. Xiao Chen hesitated for a moment, but his rationality still won over his impulsiveness. He secretly memorized Elder Nangong's residence and immediately flew into the sky. He controlled his flying sword and quickly left the Profound Cloud sect. As he flew out, Xiao Chen did not forget to ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor for advice. Elder Heaven Ancestor, I'm actually quite curious. Now that I'm at the mountain opening stage, what's the next stage? According to my current cultivation speed, how long will it take for me to break through? You are only half a step into the mountain opening stage. You haven't reached the mountain opening stage yet. The Elder Heaven Ancestor first attacked Xiao Chen, then solemnly warned, the next stage after the mountain opening stage is the earth opening stage. However, you have to be honest with me. Once a cultivator breaks through the mountain opening stage, they will enter a big realm. It is different from the previous foundation building pill. Not the same? Do I have to change my cultivation method? Or is the method of cultivation different? Xiao Chen asked with some surprise. That is not necessary. Normal cultivation is the same as before. You just need to cultivate patiently. However, once you reach the peak of each stage, if you want to continue to break through to the next stage, it will not be like before. You can't just rely on hard work to succeed. You must rely on external forces or encounter some kind of fortuitous encounter. Therefore, don't think about it for the time being. The Elder Heaven Ancestor lightly explained. External forces, fortuitous encounter. Xiao Chen muttered a few words, then smiled and said, Elder Heaven Ancestor, aren't you my external force and fortuitous encounter? With you here, why would I be afraid of not being able to break through? You have a glib tongue. You should hurry back and seize the time to cultivate. Break through to the mountain opening stage first. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice was very relaxed. Obviously, he was very happy with Xiao Chen's flattery. After laughing and scolding, he did not say anything else. When Xiao Chen saw that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was not willing to let go, he could only helplessly shake his head and smile bitterly. Then he drove his flying sword towards the Yaoxian County. However, thinking about it, Xiao Chen felt that the Elder Heaven Ancestor's words were indeed reasonable. He was currently only half a step into the mountain opening stage. Moreover, if it was not for Hongzhu's urgent help, he was afraid that he would not be able to reach this stage. He would have already lost his life. If he immediately thought about breaking through to the earth opening stage, he would really be biting off more than he could chew. He had to first plan how to work hard to improve his level. Just as Xiao Chen left the Profound Cloud sect and set off for the Yaoxian County, in a secret room of the Profound Cloud sect, a middle-aged man wearing a gray robe suddenly opened his eyes. This middle-aged man originally seemed to be in a state of cultivation. His entire body was covered in a majestic yuan qi. The fluctuations of his aura constantly spread in all directions, even creating visible ripples in the air. He looked very powerful. After he opened his eyes, he frowned slightly and immediately released an earth-shattering divine sense that enveloped the entire sect. Although the divine sense was very overbearing and arrogant, the other people in the sect seemed to be unaware of it and were still immersed in their own matters. Oh, strange, it seems that a spirit beast flew through the air, a cold voice echoed in the secret room. The middle-aged man used his divine sense to carefully examine every corner of the Profound Cloud sect. He did not even let go of the sky. He swept his eyes back and forth several times while muttering a few words. After half an hour, the middle-aged man did not seem to find anything. There was a faint trace of regret on his face as he slowly closed his eyes again and re-entered the state of breaking through to the earth-opening stage. Xiao Chen was unaware of what was happening behind him. He returned to Yaoxian County without a hitch. However, he did not return to his room in the inn. Instead, he sat down on the roof of the inn and stared at the people coming and going on the streets below. He was in a daze. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what should I do next? On the way back, the more Xiao Chen thought about it, the more depressed he became. Right now his strength was weak. If he did not level up as soon as possible, it would be very difficult for him to advance. What do you mean? Elder Heaven Ancestor pretended to be stupid and did not understand what Xiao Chen was saying. Of course, how to increase my level? Xiao Chen's expression collapsed and he said helplessly, you can see that with my current strength, I cannot make a living in the immortal cultivation world. You are too weak as a master. Now that your disciple has reached this point, you should at least lend a hand, right? Chapter 1477. Brat, you only know how to covet my things. Elder Heaven Ancestor was not as dispirited as Xiao Chen. He only snorted, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Hee, why else would I call you my master? Xiao Chen smiled and asked impatiently, do you have any powerful magic tools that you can give me? Or perhaps pills that can increase my cultivation quickly? As long as they can increase my strength, I won't have to worry too much about doing things. Elder Heaven Ancestor could not do anything about Xiao Chen's pestering, so he could only give him some advice. You are only at the half-step mountain opening stage now, so your strength is still not enough. You should hurry up and consolidate your cultivation to the first level of the mountain opening stage. When the time comes, I will guide you to explore an ancient mystic realm. I hid some good things there when I was alive. After you obtain them, you can inherit my mantle and become stronger in no time. There's such a good thing. Why didn't you say so earlier? Xiao Chen was overjoyed as he agreed. He did not forget to grumble. If he had known that Elder Heaven Ancestor had hidden treasures, he would not have wasted so much time when he first entered the immortal cultivation world. He would have focused on dual cultivation with Hongzhu every day. When he obtained the treasures of Elder Heaven Ancestor, he would be able to run amok in the immortal cultivation world. I originally wanted to tell you after you reached the mountain opening stage. Who knew that you would be so useless? Even now, you are only at the half-step mountain opening stage. How can you blame me for that? Elder Heaven Ancestor naturally saw through Xiao Chen's thoughts. He did not hold back at all and pointed the spearhead at Xiao Chen. Oh, let's not care about these details. What kind of treasures are you hiding? Xiao Chen scratched his head and changed the topic awkwardly. You will know when the time comes. Elder Heaven Ancestor did not answer directly. Instead, he gave him a serious warning. But I will say the ugly words first. Don't have too much hope for the treasure. Even if you get it, you cannot be too arrogant and domineering in the future. Although the immortal cultivation world is not big, there are still many old monsters who live in seclusion. If you alarm them, the consequences will be very troublesome. You should understand. I know. I am not a 3-year-old child who has to compete with others. Xiao Chen helplessly shrugged and responded. Now that he had a direction to go, Xiao Chen's confidence soared and the gloominess in his heart was swept away. He turned around and entered the inn, returning to his room and preparing to dual cultivate with Hongzhu. Unfortunately, the heavens did not go according to his wishes. Although Xiao Chen and Hongzhu continued to dual cultivate day and night, his progress was still very slow. He was still far from successfully stepping into the mountain opening stage. On the contrary, Hongzhu's cultivation level soared after dual cultivating. In just a few short days, he had already broken through to the nascent soul stage. This made Xiao Chen even more gloomy. No matter how he thought about it, he still could not figure out what the problem was. On the other hand, Hongzhu's cultivation level soared after dual cultivating. In just a few days, he had already broken through to the nascent soul stage. This made Xiao Chen even more gloomy. No matter how he thought about it, he still could not figure out what the problem was. And, as long as you are happy. Xiao Chen absent-mindedly nodded. This time he did not make any progress in their dual cultivation, so he was already feeling a little anxious. This is all thanks to your help. Elder sister was able to break through to this stage in such a short period of time. Hongzhu keenly sensed Xiao Chen's absent-mindedness. She simply raised her head and used her gentle and charming eyes to look at him. She teased him in a very playful manner. Say, how should elder sister thank you? Why don't we change the taste tonight and play a little more exciting? Oh, do as you wish. Xiao Chen was still absent-minded and casually agreed. He did not have any interest in Hongzhu's seduction. His entire mind was filled with thoughts about the treasure hidden in the secret realm that the Elder Heaven Ancestor had mentioned. Right now, he had to consolidate his cultivation to the first layer of the mountain opening stage as soon as possible. Only then would he be able to explore the secret realm. However, the results of his cultivation over the past few days had been minimal. It was as if a plate of steaming braised pork had been placed in front of him, but it had been covered by a glass cover. Although his desire to eat it was extremely strong, He was unable to break through the cover no matter what. What's wrong? Why do you look a little unhappy? Hongzhu's hot face was plastered to a cold butt. He unhappily curled his lips and muttered, "Could it be that because elder sister's work is not good enough, so you are unable to raise your spirits?" Although Hongzhu also understood that once a man and woman passed the period of passionate love, the interest in life would gradually cool down, wasn't Xiaochen a little too cold? It had not even been a month. Foolish Hongzhu. Could it be that in your eyes, I am a shallow man who only thinks with the lower half of his body? Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? Xiaochen came back to his senses. When he saw Hongzhu's fuming look, he knew that he had neglected her feelings because of the matter regarding the treasure. He pinched her soft cheeks apologetically and teased her in a faint voice. All right. It's nothing. Elder sister, I just feel that you seem to have something on your mind. Why don't you tell me and see if elder sister can help you solve it? When Hongzhu saw that Xiaochen wasn't tired of him, the clouds on his face parted as if he had seen the sun. His expression instantly brightened up. He gently leaned on Xiaochen's shoulder and mischievously stretched out his finger to tease his earlobe. From time to time he would even blow air into his ear. You're really stupid and adorably stupid. How could there be such an easy matter to solve? Xiaochen affectionately scratched Hongzhu's nose. After thinking for a while, he simply explained, "Didn't I make a trip to the profound cloud sect a few days ago? After that, I discovered that there were many mountain opening stage experts there, so I didn't dare to rashly go in. I just wanted to come back and dual cultivate with them to raise my cultivation, but in the end..." Sigh. Xiaochen gently sighed. Although he knew that Hongzhu wouldn't be able to help, it wasn't appropriate for him to watch her worry blindly. Thus, it was better for him to tell her about it so that she would feel more at ease. He would just treat it as someone he could confide in. So that's how it is. Isn't that simple? Of course elder sister has a solution. Hongzhu nodded in sudden realization. She rolled her eyes and suddenly said with a smile, "Stop fooling around. How could you possibly have a solution?" Xiaochen naturally didn't believe her, but when he saw the confident look on Hongzhu's face, he felt that she didn't seem to be joking. Chapter 1478. The method is very simple. Hongzhu puffed out his chest, snapped his fingers and said with a mischievous smile, "Tomorrow we'll go and lure a virgin back together. Then you and her will do it, gather her primordial yin, and then take the opportunity to cultivate. Wouldn't that increase your progress?" What kind of rotten idea is this? Forget it, I'll think of a way myself. Hearing Hongzhu's strange idea, Xiaochen almost spat out. He couldn't help but roll his eyes and could only ask for help in his sea of consciousness. "I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor, do you have any good ideas? Something that can help me quickly advance to the first layer of the opening mountain stage?" "Of course there is a way." Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice came out unhurriedly. Why didn't you say so earlier if there was a way? I've wasted a few days' worth of effort." Xiaochen's vision darkened and he almost cried. Was Elder Heaven Ancestor playing with him? "You didn't ask at the time." Elder Heaven Ancestor chuckled and then said seriously, "All right, I won't joke around anymore. You reached the half-step opening mountain stage while unconscious, and you don't have enough understanding of the stage to begin with. You should spend a few days to properly consolidate your foundation, familiarize yourself with this stage, and then proceed to the next step." "All right, then what's the method this time? You wouldn't be like Hongzhu and want me to find another woman to do it with, right?" Xiaochen laughed bitterly and asked in an extremely sincere manner. "Wishful thinking." Elder Heaven Ancestor said sarcastically to Xiaochen again, and then returned to the main topic. "Let's follow the same routine as before. Boil the natural treasures into a medicinal soup, drink it, and then combine it with exercise to cultivate. However, the medicinal ingredients you brought from the inner martial world are not enough. You'll need to get some medicinal ingredients from the immortal cultivation world to complement it. This way the effect will be more obvious or it will be useless." "All right, it's time to take medicine again." Xiaochen mocked himself, then asked, "Then please give me a list of the herbs you need from the world of cultivators this time. Tomorrow I'll go to the Burning Heavens sect to get it. Anyway, they've already planted quite a lot of heavenly treasures. Last time when they destroyed the mountain bandits' lair, they even seized their warehouse. I reckon that they've profited quite a lot. It should be enough for me to deal with for a while." "That won't do. Previously, when they were counting the treasures of heaven and earth, I had already carefully looked through them. The level of the Burning Sky faction's items is still too low. They might not be able to deal with your prescription this time. Elder Heaven Ancestor mercilessly rejected Xiao Chen's suggestion. Xiao Chen frowned. Before he had time to ask, Elder Heaven Ancestor immediately added, "You can ask that kid Nangong to get some suitable heavenly treasures. No matter what, the Profound Cloud sect is the second largest sect in the cultivation world. The people there are all experienced. They must have a lot of good stuff hidden." After that, Elder Heaven Ancestor made a list in Xiao Chen's mind. On it, there were 7 or 8 kinds of rare herbs that Xiao Chen had never heard of or seen before. Flaming Mist Lotus, Tranquilizing Demon Emperor Flower, Blood Star Leaf Grass. After silently reading the herbs on the list, Xiao Chen was at a loss. He could only shake his head slightly. The names of these herbs sounded very imposing. It seemed that only a large sect like the Profound Cloud sect was qualified to have them. Last time when he was counting the treasures of heaven and earth in the Burning Sky faction, he really hadn't seen or even heard of these things. "Yes, these are the things on this prescription. Hurry up and ask Nangong for them," Elder Heaven Ancestor said lightly. Just as Xiao Chen was about to agree, he suddenly remembered something very important. He quickly said, "That's not right, Elder Heaven Ancestor. Last time you said that the Profound Cloud sect was full of experts and told me not to provoke them. Now you want me to go find Nangong. What should I do? Do I have to go directly to their sect to visit them? What's so difficult about that?" Elder Heaven Ancestor's tone was as simple as eating a meal. "Can't you just use the Divine Sense imprint to communicate with them?" Using the Divine Sense imprint to communicate. Xiao Chen scratched his head. What kind of new skill was this? He had never heard of it before. "It is to pour your mental energy into the Divine Sense imprint on Nangong's body and then make a sound. The Yuan Qi will naturally transform the sound waves and transmit them to the imprint before sending them out again," Elder Heaven Ancestor slowly explained. "So that's how it is. This is really quite convenient." Xiao Chen nodded in realization. After a pause he asked, "Then why didn't you tell me this before? If I had known, I wouldn't have gone to the Profound Cloud sect." "I really forgot about this." Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded very innocent. Xiao Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Hongzhu. "Husband Xiao Chen, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about when you can go find a suitable girl tomorrow?" Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen was in a daze and couldn't help but wave his hand in front of his eyes as he asked jealously, "What are you thinking about?" Xiao Chen rubbed Hongzhu's head and said with a smile, "I just thought of a more suitable method, so I fell into deep thought and didn't have time to talk to you. Alright, go to sleep first. I'll be busy for a while. I'll come find you when I'm done." Then I'll wait for you in bed." Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen seemed to have found a way and no longer pestered him. He obediently nodded and kissed him on the cheek before washing up and going to sleep. After the surroundings had quietened down, Xiao Chen began to release his divine sense and mental energy. Using the divine sense imprint that he had placed on Elder Nangong's body, he quietly transmitted his voice, "Hey, Elder Nangong, I'm your exalted immortal Xiao. If you hear me, hurry up and say something. This exalted immortal has something important for you to do." At this moment, in a room in the Profound Cloud sect not too far away, Elder Nangong had already fallen asleep. That familiar voice that had suddenly sounded in his ears scared Elder Nangong so much that he immediately rolled off the bed. He wrapped himself in the blanket and looked around with wide eyes. Strangely, the room was empty and he couldn't find anyone. Elder Nangong was a little puzzled and he couldn't figure it out. That voice just now had been too real, so real that he couldn't believe that it was a dream. "Alright, stop looking left and right. This exalted immortal was the one who called for you. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and wake up and reply." Just as Elder Nangong was beginning to believe that he was having a nightmare and that was why he could hear someone talking, that extremely familiar demonic voice rang out in his ear once again. This time, Elder Nangong was in a clear-headed state, so he could immediately tell that the other party was the one he had seen before, the one who had been injured by him, Xiao Chen. Chapter 1479. Then, "Are you exalted immortal Xiao?" Elder Nangong shrunk his neck and mustered his courage to ask. However, after asking he was a little confused. He looked around again and especially looked outside the door and window. There was really no one there. He could not help but be confused. What kind of unique magic treasure did exalted immortal Xiao have? How could he transmit his voice from such a long distance? "Well, why are you asking so many questions if you know?" Without waiting for Elder Nangong to finish his question, Xiao Chen's fierce voice rang out again. Go to your sect's pharmacy right now and get some of the medicinal ingredients I reported to you. Bring them over to me as a tribute. Yes. Elder Nangong realized that Xiao Chen was actually talking to him. He could not help but gasp. When had he ever seen such a strange phenomenon? In the immortal cultivation world, didn't one need to use a voice-transmitting talisman? He was not even holding a voice-transmitting talisman. How did Xiao Chen do it? Was there a more convenient way? Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and get a pen and paper. Write down all the treasures I need. Xiao Chen urged impatiently when he saw that Elder Nangong did not move for a long time. Elder Nangong shivered in fear. After regaining his composure, he hesitated for a while and asked softly, Exalted Immortal Xiao, I want to ask, how did you transmit your voice? Why didn't you use a voice-transmitting talisman or something? Hearing Nangong's body temperature, Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. He asked the Elder Heaven Ancestor in his divine sense. Nangong's reaction seems a little strange. Isn't he an immortal cultivator? Doesn't he know that the divine sense imprint set up with mental energy can not only monitor but also transmit? What do they know? The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice was full of disdain. These people are too weak. Immortal cultivators like us are pure immortal cultivators. We belong to the Orthodox sect. Their kind of broken immortal cultivation has been thousands of years ago. Their original complete immortal cultivation techniques have long been lost. What's left are just broken scrolls. They are basically imitations. They are not comparable to us at all. Oh, I see. I understand now. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. Then he gathered his divine sense and mental energy and transmitted a message to Elder Nangong. Why do you like to ask so much? Do I still need to rely on a lowly thing like the sound-transmitting talisman? I naturally have my own methods. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. Alright, then you just said that you want me to record the heavenly treasures. Elder Nangong could not get an answer from Xiao Chen, so he could only reply in a somewhat sullen manner. When he thought about how he had to steal the medicinal ingredients for the person who injured him, his mood became extremely gloomy. You don't have to feel too bad. In return for the medicinal ingredients you gave me, I can help you restore the broken meridians and acupoints in your body, as well as all the injuries I caused, back to their original state. Xiao Chen could hear Elder Nangong's hesitation. He didn't bother to scare him anymore and directly threw out his most important bargaining chip. What? Is what you said true? Elder Nangong was instantly shocked and said in disbelief, but I have never heard of a case where the meridians were broken to this extent could still be cured. Recently, Elder Nangong had already tried many heavenly treasures in the sect and also invited many famous doctors to diagnose him. However, his injuries did not improve at all. After those famous doctors diagnosed his injuries, they also gave the verdict that he could not be cured. Elder Nangong was completely disheartened and wanted to give up treatment. He did not expect that Xiao Chen would give him hope at this time. He could not help but worry about his gains and losses. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that there are no such cases. Xiao Chen added indifferently, if you don't believe me, you might as well ask about Burning Sky Sect's Gong Ruidong. Not long ago his old leg injury was cured by me. If Exalted Immortal Xiao doesn't mind, why don't you give me a little more time? Elder Nangong struggled for a long time and then said with a trembling voice, Wait for me to confirm Gong Ruidong's situation then, all right. Before Elder Nangong could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Xiao Chen's voice in his ear. You better hurry up. This Exalted Immortal is in a good mood recently, which is why I am giving you this rare opportunity. Do not waste my good intentions. Alright, I will go investigate immediately. Elder Nangong did not think that Xiao Chen would really agree to his request. He was overjoyed and responded a few times. Xiao Chen made a sound of, oh, and did not respond anymore. Elder Nangong waited for a while in fear and trepidation, but the room was still silent. Only then did he determine that Exalted Immortal Xiao would not send another sound transmission. He could not be bothered to sleep and climbed up from the ground. After hurriedly putting on his clothes, he went out and woke one of his subordinates up from his sleep. Facing his confused subordinate, Elder Nangong sternly ordered him to immediately inquire about the Burning Heavens faction's Grand Elder Gong Ruidong's latest news. Furthermore, Elder Nangong had specially instructed his subordinate to understand the cause and effect of the investigation. Not a single detail could be left out. Furthermore, he had to report all the information he obtained to Elder Nangong as soon as possible. After being yelled at by Elder Nangong, the subordinate who was originally still sleepy had also woken up. Naturally, he did not dare to delay and immediately accepted the order. After a simple packing, he immediately set off. Looking at the back of his subordinate hurriedly leaving, Elder Nangong finally let out a sigh of relief. He returned to his room uneasily and sat on the bed in a daze. A glimmer of light gradually emerged in his heart. Elder Nangong could clearly feel that after his cultivation was crippled, the profound cloud sect leader gradually began to not pay much attention to him. Although the sect leader allowed him to use medicinal herbs to treat him, his usual attitude towards him had gradually become cold. Elder Nangong guessed that if it was not for the fact that he had made some outstanding contributions to the sect and some special reasons, if he was just an ordinary disciple, the sect leader might have already kicked him out of the sect. However, right now Xiao Chen's generous promise was undoubtedly like a life-saving straw, causing Elder Nangong to be extremely excited. If the subordinate he sent out could confirm that Gong Ruidong was indeed cured by Xiao Chen, then no matter how great the price he had to pay, he must firmly grasp this rare opportunity. If Xiao Chen could really cure her, then she would be able to restore her prestige in the sect. Then all the grudges and unwillingness between the two of them could be written off in one stroke. The medicinal herbs that Xiao Chen mentioned, it would not be a problem for him to hand over with both hands. Chapter 1480. As the saying goes, speed is of the essence in war. While Elder Nangong was waiting anxiously, the disciple of the Profound Cloud sect only spent one day to reach the Lucian County where the Burning Sky faction was located. Relying on the powerful network of the Profound Cloud sect, he quickly found out that Gong Ruidong had indeed gone berserk during cultivation, causing her blood to flow in reverse, causing her meridians to be broken and becoming a cripple. Furthermore, there were a lot of witnesses, so it could not be faked. This was because Gong Ruidong had specially found many doctors to diagnose him. However, everyone's conclusion was that his injuries were too serious and could not be cured. It was estimated that he would not be able to stand up again in this lifetime. After the Yunxian sect disciple asked all kinds of people in the Lucian County, he had a rough idea in his heart. He then turned around and snuck into the Burning Sky faction silently. However, after entering the Burning Sky faction, the scene that he saw made him endlessly shocked. He saw Gong Ruidong in the plaza giving guidance to the disciples' cultivation in high spirits, walking here and there with large strides. His figure was extremely nimble, and he didn't look like someone who would be permanently disabled. The Yunxian sect disciple looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He could not believe his eyes. When he came back to his senses, he finally remembered Elder Nangong's instructions. He hurriedly left the Burning Sky faction and returned to the inn where he was staying. After returning to the inn, the Yunxian sect disciple did not even have time to stick his butt to the chair. He immediately took out the sound-transmitting amulet to contact Elder Nangong and reported everything in detail. Elder Nangong, who had not slept for the whole night, listened to his subordinate's report. He did not know whether he was surprised or happy. He stood there in a daze for a while before grabbing the list of medicinal ingredients that Xiao Chen had asked for. He turned around and walked towards the direction of the medicine room. Elder Nangong's position in the Yunxian sect was originally very high. In addition, he was also healing himself. Therefore, when he asked for all kinds of strange medicinal ingredients, the disciple in charge of the medicine room did not suspect much. After letting him simply register, he obediently handed over all the medicinal ingredients with both hands. After receiving the medicinal ingredients, Elder Nangong did not say much to the others. He directly left the mountain gate and went straight to the inn that Xiao Chen had mentioned before in the Yaoxian County. Dong dong dong. At this very moment, Xiao Chen was leisurely waiting in the inn for Elder Nangong to deliver the herbs to him. When he heard the knocking on the door, he first spread out his spiritual sense to check the surroundings. After confirming that the visitor was indeed Elder Nangong and that there were no other suspicious people lying in ambush nearby, he nodded to Hongzhu and opened the door with his spiritual sense. That. Exalted Immortal Xiao Miss Hong, good morning? When Elder Nangong saw the door open by itself, he panicked a little. He quickly put on a smiling face and tiptoed into the room. He closed the door gently and respectfully greeted the two of them. He conveniently placed the bundle in his hand on the table. You came? Have you brought all the heavenly treasures that I've told you about? Xiao Chen glanced at Elder Nangong indifferently and asked unhurriedly. I've brought them. Elder Nangong immediately answered. He then carefully opened the bundle on the table and carefully took out every single heavenly treasure and piled them on the table. He did not forget to introduce them one by one. Look, this is the flaming mist lotus, that is the tranquilizing demon emperor flower, and this is the blood lingji star leaf grass. Not long after, the medicinal ingredients that Elder Nangong brought filled the entire table. He only stopped when he had taken out all the heavenly treasures from the bundle. He said with a humble expression, "Exalted Immortal Shao, the medicinal ingredients that you've asked me to bring are all here. They have all been lost. You can count them yourself. There shouldn't be any mistakes." "There's no need for that. I still have some trust in you. Since you said there's no mistake, then there's definitely no mistake." Xiao Qin waved his hand casually. He did not even look at the dazzling array of heavenly treasures on the table. He said lazily, "All right, there's nothing else for you to do. You can go back first." Elder Nangong was taken aback. He did not leave immediately. Instead, he awkwardly rubbed his hands together and squeezed out a smile. He asked weakly, Exalted Immortal Shao, didn't you say that as long as I have the medicinal ingredients that you need, you will heal my injuries? Since I've brought all these things for you, do you think? What's the hurry? In any case, you won't die for a while." Xiao Qin glared at Elder Nangong. He stood up and walked to the table. He quickly put away the heavenly treasures and put them into his own bag as if nothing had happened. But this, that. Elder Nangong was a little dumbfounded. Looking at Xiao Qin's attitude, could it be that he was going to turn his back on him after he had obtained the heavenly treasures? Now that he had lost his cultivation, there was nothing he could do even if Xiao Qin wanted to renege on his promise. Xiao Qin did not care too much about Elder Nangong's thoughts. He just wanted to try out the heavenly treasures and see if they were useful. If the medicinal effects were insufficient or if there were any problems, he could ask Elder Nangong to bring more over. However, when Xiao Qin turned his head and saw that Elder Nangong was about to cry, he could only shake his head helplessly and explain, "What are you thinking about? Won't I need time to brew the medicine for you? Just wait obediently. I'll finish brewing the medicine for you later. Wait, 3 days later you can come back to get it." "All right. Then I'll wait for your good news." Elder Nangong's heart relaxed slightly. He forced a smile and nodded in agreement. Elder Nangong originally thought that after handing over all the heavenly treasures to Xiao Qin, he would be able to help him heal. He did not expect that he would have to wait for a few more days. Although it had been delayed for a few days, at least Xiao Qin had given him a definite answer. It was not like what Elder Nangong thought that Xiao Qin would burn the bridge after crossing it. Right now, Elder Nangong could only choose to leave first. After all, his fate was still in the hands of Xiao Qin. No matter what Xiao Qin said, he had to do as he was told. There was no room for negotiation. However, Elder Nangong did not directly return to the Xianyun sect. After leaving Xiao Qin's room, he immediately went to the innkeeper of the inn. He also booked a room in the inn. He planned to go to Xiao Qin's place as soon as possible in 3 days, so that he would not have to make a trip to the Xianyun sect. Elder Nangong's actions were clearly seen by Xiao Qin through the divine sense imprint. However, he was too lazy to care about this old man's thoughts. If he wanted to wait, then wait. Chapter 1481. After closing the door to his room, he began to take out the heavenly treasures of the cultivation world one by one. He also took out the medicinal herbs he had brought from the inner martial world and placed them on the table. Then he mixed the two together. Hongzhu smiled as she nestled against Xiao Chen's side. She curiously watched his movements and asked with great interest, "Husband, will you be able to quickly level up after eating these medicinal herbs? Do you want Big Sister to catch a first maiden for you? Perhaps the medicinal herbs will be even more effective when paired with a first maiden." "Why do you always want me to do that with a first maiden? Are you addicted to it?" Xiao Qin unhappily rolled his eyes at Hongzhu. Then he began to rummage around the room for something. "Husband Xiao Qin, what are you looking for? Tell Big Sister will help you look for it." Hongzhu curiously asked when she saw Xiao Qin's actions. "I'm looking for a vessel to boil medicine in." Xiao Qin rummaged for a while but was unable to find a suitable substitute. So, he casually instructed, "Since you want to help, you might as well borrow a cauldron from the inn's waiter. After the medicine is boiled, you can drink some of it as well. It will be of great help to raise your cultivation." "I want to drink it too? Then do you have enough for yourself?" Hongzhu blinked her eyes and earnestly asked, "Why don't I let you drink all of it? In any case, Big Sister is already a nascent soul expert. It doesn't matter even if I level up a little slower. Don't I still have you to protect me? It's fine. There are so many medicinal herbs. It's enough for the two of us to drink." It was as if Xiao Chen had already seen through Hongzhu's thoughts. He did not accept her kindness and instead rubbed her head with a confident look on his face. All right then. Wait a moment, I'll go borrow a cauldron. Hongzhu curled his lips, shot a glare at Xiao Chen, walked out of the door, called over a waiter, gave him a few spirit crystals, and instructed him to buy a clay pot specially used to boil medicine, as well as a pot of hot water. When everything was ready, Xiao Chen put the treasures into the clay pot one by one according to the order. Then he condensed the samadhi true fire in his palm. He put the clay pot on his palm and slowly stewed it. His eyes stared at the red bottom of the pot without blinking, but he had mixed feelings in his heart. Back then, when he had just been kicked out of the Xiao family, he couldn't even afford a 300 yuan electric pot. If it wasn't for Yi Xiaoya's kindness and generosity in giving him a pot, he might really be at his wit's end. A hero is no man without money. Looking back at the present, now that he had the strength, he didn't even need to use an electric clay pot. As long as he had a container, he could directly use the samadhi true fire to boil medicine. Moreover, he could even easily judge the time and temperature. Compared to the past, he was hundreds of times happier. He didn't know how Yi Xiaoya and the others were doing in the martial arts world. Had they stabilized the morale of the Awakening Heaven sect? Was everything safe and sound? And Cheng Minjing, Tang Tang, and the others who had entered the immortal cultivation world with him, were they all right? Were they all? At that moment, many beautiful figures flashed through Xiao Chen's mind, and he was a little dazed for a moment. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, a strong medicinal fragrance drifted out of the clay pot and pervaded the whole room. It was both bitter and fragrant. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and used his divine sense to sense the efficacy of the medicine. Estimating that it was almost done, he put away the samadhi true fire and evenly poured the medicinal liquid into 2 porcelain bowls that he had prepared earlier. After handing one of the bowls to Hongzhu, Xiao Chen casually picked up the other bowl, brought it to his mouth and raised his head, preparing to drink the entire medicinal liquid. Wait! Hongzhu suddenly shouted. Xiao Chen's hand froze and he lowered his head to look at her in surprise. That elder sister is too afraid of bitterness. Husband, you should drink a little more. This medicinal liquid doesn't smell good, and I don't want to suffer so much. Hongzhu rolled his eyes and plausibly found an excuse. Without waiting for Xiao Chen to respond, Hongzhu picked up her own bowl and carefully poured a little of the medicinal liquid into Xiao Chen's bowl. When she felt that it was about right, she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and drank the entire medicinal liquid in her bowl. In truth, Hongzhu was not some pampered little princess, nor was she afraid of the bitter taste of this trivial medicinal liquid. She simply felt that natural treasures were not easy to come by, and the gap in strength between the two of them was quite large, so it would be better for the stronger Xiao Chen to drink more. In Hongzhu's view, it was secondary whether she wanted to improve her strength or not. In any case, whenever something happened, it would be Xiao Chen who would be the one fighting, and there would be no need for her to do anything. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Naturally, he understood that Hongzhu was doing this for his own good. He gently pinched the tip of her nose and no longer tried to refuse. He raised the porcelain bowl in his hand and drank all of the medicinal liquid. When Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen had drunk the entire medicinal liquid, she immediately revealed a satisfied smile and diligently cleaned up the 2 bowls. After that, she obediently sat down on a chair and waited for the medicinal liquid to take effect. After a short while, Xiao Chen suddenly felt a warm sensation in his dantian, and a strange aura began to circulate in his dantian. Xiao Chen keenly realized that this must be the effect of the medicinal liquid he had just drunk. Without delaying any further, he immediately pulled Hongzhu to sit on the bed, and the 2 of them entered into a familiar state of dual cultivation. However, contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, perhaps because the medicinal liquid was too thick, or perhaps because too many herbs had been added, the medicinal effect was very slow to take effect. The 2 of them did not eat or drink, and instead cultivated wholeheartedly for 2 days and 1 night before the dual cultivation finally came to an end. Although the cultivation time was very long, the results were still very remarkable. Xiao Chen, with the foundation accumulated from the previous cultivation, smoothly advanced to the 2nd layer of the mountain opening stage, while Hongzhu's progress slowed down, and he only advanced to the 1st layer of the nascent soul stage. Even a man made of iron would not be able to endure 2 whole days of cultivation without sleep or rest. After Xiao Chen and Hongzhu finished their dual cultivation, they were no longer in the mood to be lovey-dovey. They did not even have time to eat and immediately fell asleep. The 2 of them slept for several more hours from dusk until the morning of the 3rd day. Only then did they slowly recover. After waking up, they lazily lay on the bed, not wanting to get up for the time being. Hongzhu had helped Xiaoqin successfully advance to the next layer, and had a good sleep. At this moment, her face was glowing and she was full of energy. She was also in a very good mood. She gently leaned on Xiaoqian's shoulder and said with a charming smile, "Husband Xiaoqian, since it's still early, why don't we? Immortal Xiao, are you awake?" Before Hongzhu could finish speaking, Elder Nangong's impatient voice came from outside, followed by a few knocks on the door. Chapter 1482. Elder Nangong patiently waited in the inn for 3 days. From time to time, he would go out to see if there was any activity in Xiaoqian's room. He thought that if Heavenly Immortal Xiao or Hongzhu came out, he could go over and ask around. He did not expect that after 3 whole days, Heavenly Immortal Xiao and Hongzhu actually did not come out even once. Elder Nangong almost suspected that the two of them had directly escaped through the window. With great difficulty, it was finally the 3rd day. Elder Nangong naturally woke up early in the morning. After stuffing some breakfast into his mouth, he immediately ran over to look for Xiaoqian to treat his injuries. Hearing Nangong's knock, Hongzhu's smile immediately froze on her face. She suspected that Gong Xiaoxi and Elder Nangong were doing this on purpose. They always chose the most appropriate time to look for Xiaoqian. They were clearly deliberately trying to anger her. Xiaoqian did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Hongzhu's angry and hateful little face. He lightly patted her head, shook his head and got up to put on his clothes. "Xiao. Heavenly Immortal Xiao?" Elder Nangong called out tentatively. His heart began to beat like a drum. Could it be that the two of them had really escaped like I thought? I'm up. Aren't you annoying? Why are you knocking on my door so early in the morning?" Hongzhu impatiently jumped up from the bed and yelled at the door. Elder Nangong trembled from the yell. However, when he knew that Xiaoqian and Hongzhu had not left, he finally felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. Hongzhu finished putting on her clothes. When she saw that Xiaoqian was still cleaning up the medicinal dregs, she angrily went to open the door. Then, she fiercely glared at Elder Nangong outside and angrily said, "Didn't I tell you to wait for my notice? You don't know the rules at all. How preposterous." I'm sorry, Miss Hong. I was indeed a little rash." Elder Nangong could not raise his head after being scolded by Hongzhu. He felt a little guilty and secretly blamed himself for being too impulsive and directly knocking on the door so early in the morning. He had offended Heavenly Immortal Xiao's Dao companion. If he did not handle it well, Heavenly Immortal Xiao might not treat his injuries anymore. "Alright, what are you still standing there foolishly for? Come in and get the medicine." Xiaoqian finished packing the medicinal dregs into a small bag. When he raised his head and saw that Elder Nangong was still standing at the entrance, he spoke with a mixture of anger and amusement. Okay. Elder Nangong came back to his senses, hastily responded and quickly walked into the room. In his haste, he nearly tripped over the doors, causing Hongzhu to roll his eyes at him. Xiaoqian put the bag of herbal dregs on the table, then he found some natural treasures from the inner Wuling and put them in the bag as well. Then he put the bag in front of Elder Nangong and said lightly, "This is it. Take it back." According to the normal method of decocting the medicine, he should be able to recover after drinking it 3 to 4 times. Elder Nangong hesitated for a moment and did not immediately go to get the medicine. Instead he carefully asked, "That? Exalted Immortal Xiao, may I ask why? Does it seem like there are some medicinal dregs in here?" "Oh, this is where you don't understand. In my prescription, there are some medicinal ingredients that need to be decocted first before they can be used. There are also some ingredients that must be fresh." Xiaoqian's expression did not change as he fabricated a story. "If you don't believe me, you can go and ask Gong Ruidong. When I treated him, did I also use the same medicinal dregs? If it was normal, then why would it be unique?" No need. Of course I believe in Exalted Immortal Xiao's divine healing skills." Elder Nangong hurriedly waved his hand and flattered with a flattering smile. "It's good that you believe me." Xiaoqian glanced at him and asked indifferently, "Do you have any other questions?" "No, there's nothing else. Thank you, Exalted Immortal Xiao, for the medicine." Elder Nangong hurriedly picked up the medicinal ingredients on the table and happily stuffed them into his clothes as if he had found a treasure. Although he had never heard of the saying that medicinal ingredients needed to be decocted first before they would be effective, since Exalted Immortal Xiao had said so, he could only choose to believe him. Anyway, the result would not be any worse. At most, he could only make a desperate attempt. After keeping the medicinal ingredients, Elder Nangong only wanted to go back and drink the medicine to heal his injuries. He respectfully said to Xiao Qin, "Exalted Immortal Xiao, if there's nothing else then I'll first. Don't be in a hurry to leave." Xiao Qin interrupted Elder Nangong's words and found a seat to sit down. He said slowly, "I still have something to ask you." Elder Nangong was stunned for a moment. He did not know what Xiao Qin was going to do, but he did not dare to turn around and leave. He could only obediently stand where he was and wait for Exalted Immortal Zhao's instructions. Xiao Qin was in no hurry. He first picked up the cup of tea that Hongzhu had just poured for him and drank it in one gulp. Then, he casually wiped his mouth with his sleeve and looked at Elder Nangong calmly. He said, "Previously at the Burning Sky faction when I asked you about the situation with the bandits, you seem to have hidden some things?" Elder Nangong's expression changed slightly. He thought that Xiao Qin did not notice this matter. He did not expect that it had already fallen into his eyes. He could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth in embarrassment. "When we were at the bandit headquarters, I did not wait for you to be honest." Xiao Qin did not look at Elder Nangong. He looked at the empty teacup in his hand and said in a seemingly casual manner, "Now that I have already given you the panacea to heal your injuries, shouldn't you explain the situation to me?" Of course. Elder Nangong smiled embarrassedly and scratched his head. He said, "Actually it is not a big deal. There was a time when I went out to help the Profound Cloud sect with a mission. In a moment of carelessness, I fell into the enemy's trap and was attacked by several people at the same time. As a result, I was seriously injured. I did not want to tell you at the time because I was worried that I would lose face if I told you about it, so... And then?" Xiao Qin could not be bothered to listen to Elder Nangong's explanation. He only wanted to know the relationship between him and the bandits. "Later on, my luck was not bad. After much difficulty, I found an opportunity to escape from their encirclement." Elder Nangong explained in full detail. "However, I was already seriously injured at the time and my life was in danger. In the darkness, I entered an unfamiliar place. Fortunately, the owner of that place was an expert. Not only did he not blame me for trespassing, he even kindly saved my life. It seems that you are not fated to die. The expert who saved you is the young master of the bandits, right?" Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows and asked. However, as soon as he asked, he remembered that the person who owed him a favor was called the Big Boss. It should be the father of the young master. "No, he is the big boss of the bandits." Elder Nangong shook his head and added, "At that time he gave me a kind of medicine, but I didn't expect it to have such an immediate effect. My injuries healed just like that, and I even successfully broke through to the Profound Ascension stage." Chapter 1483. "Oh, there's actually such a good thing? You were already on the verge of death. What medicine was so miraculous that it could actually save your life? Could it be that it was the same medicine I gave you?" Hearing this, Xiao Qin's interest was piqued and he couldn't help but ask curiously. Xiao Qin actually didn't suspect that Elder Nangong was lying. There were definitely many strange people hidden in the cultivation world. Wasn't the Elder Heaven Ancestor one of them? Among them, there was someone who could bring someone back from the dead with a life-saving medicine that could regenerate the flesh and bones of the dead. "It's not this kind. At that time he gave me a white transparent medicine." Elder Nangong recalled for a while and his eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his finger and gestured in the air. "That's right. He used a tube that was about this long. That strange tube was filled with a transparent potion, and then it was connected to a hollow needle that could inject the potion into my body. After I used the potion, it didn't take long for me to recover." "Tube? Hollow needle?" Xiao Qin was very astonished as he repeated. According to Elder Nangong's description, using a needle and a tube to inject medicine into the body. Wasn't that the same as injections in the secular world's hospitals? He was very familiar with this thing, but it shouldn't appear in the cultivation world. How could there be people doing this kind of thing in such an ancient place? This was too strange. With a head full of question marks, Xiao Qin couldn't help but sink into deep thought. Who was this person? Who brought those syringes and needles from the secular world into the cultivation world? From the looks of it, this bandit group was indeed a bit strange. If it was just an insignificant bandit group, it shouldn't be related to the secular world at all. That great master actually had such a deep understanding of the secular world. He was even familiar with how to use it. There must be a problem here. Xiao Qin thought about it again. Apart from this bandit group, that the immortal cultivation chamber of commerce also faintly revealed the shadow of the secular world. There were contracts all over the place. Could it be that there was another passage in the cultivation world that led directly to the secular world? Otherwise, why would there be so many inexplicable connections? Yes, a relatively small and hard tube about this long and the needle. Elder Nangong wanted to describe a few more words, but he was interrupted by Xiao Chen. I understand. Xiao Chen waved his hand and thought for a while. Then he asked cautiously, then this expert, who is also the great master, was originally so kind that he offered to treat you? No, that's not it. Elder Nangong shook his head with a bitter smile and explained, at that time he said that he wanted to treat me, but the price was to use me as an experiment. After injecting the medicine into me through that tube, he needed to observe the situation. So, the drug he used is actually a new one that hasn't been tested. A thought suddenly flashed through Xiao Chen's mind like a spark. He thought of something, but when he wanted to recall it again, the light had already disappeared without a trace. It should be. Elder Nangong nodded and said, the great master told me that if I recovered safely after using the medicine, I could leave on my own. If I didn't recover completely, I had to stay with him and continue the treatment until I was cured. Xiao Chen didn't say anything. He added in his heart, it could also be until I die. This time, Elder Nangong seemed to understand what Xiao Chen was thinking. He sighed and said, at that time, I also suspected that it might be a trap. But since I was about to die, I might as well risk my life to accompany him in this experiment. Anyway, even if I didn't agree, the result would still be death. So, after using that medicine you recovered directly? You didn't stay any longer? Xiao Chen stared at Elder Nangong and asked. Yes, not only did I recover from my injuries, but I also increased my cultivation level. Elder Nangong nodded and said frankly, just as he said, the great master didn't ask me to stay any longer, so I left just like that. However, I also owed him a favor. At that time, I promised him that if he needed my help, he could contact me at any time. That's why I met you, exalted immortal Xiao. Naturally, Xiao Chen knew what happened after that. He thought for a while and asked again, oh, the great master and the young master, what did they look like? Do you know their names? Exalted immortal Xiao, this is too difficult for me. Elder Nangong's face fell and he said helplessly, I was seriously injured at that time, so my consciousness was completely muddled. I didn't even see the great master's face clearly. As for the young master, although I saw him once, his face seemed to be injured. Other than his eyes, his entire face was covered with gauze, so I didn't know what he looked like. As for their names, I didn't ask. What Elder Nangong said was the truth. Back then he was surrounded and attacked. Although he escaped, his life was in danger and he was unconscious most of the time. After he was saved, Elder Nangong was taken care of by the great master's subordinates. After he recovered, he left on his own. His conversations with the great master were also passed on through his subordinates. He didn't have a deep relationship with the great master. Forget it. You don't seem to know anything. Even if you remember, you probably won't be able to explain. Xiao Chen waved his hand and didn't want to continue asking about this. He thought for a while and asked in his sea of consciousness, by the way, Elder Heaven Ancestor, where is the specific location of the mystic realm you mentioned? Nangong is also here, so I can ask him about the route. That's hard to say. It's been a few thousand years since then. The names of the places are different from before, so it's even more difficult to find the way. Elder Heaven Ancestor's answer disappointed Xiao Chen, but he didn't give up. He continued to ask, what was the name of the place? Maybe I can ask Nangong and he'll know. That place is called Blue Sky Valley. Elder Heaven Ancestor's tone was very solemn. The entire valley is filled with poisonous fog. There are many rare spiritual beasts living there. Those spiritual beasts are extremely intelligent and don't fear the poisonous fog at all. Some even use the poisonous fog to cultivate themselves and are very powerful. Xiao Chen nodded slightly and looked up at Elder Nangong, who was standing there with a smile on his face. He pretended to say casually, by the way, you should have heard of Blue Sky Valley, right? I plan to go to that place to take a look in a few days. Do you know how to get there from Yaoxian County? Blue Sky Valley? Elder Nangong frowned and repeated. He looked a little confused. Chapter 1484. Elder Nangong frowned and thought for a long time. He shook his head and said, I'm sorry, Immortal Xiao, I don't think I've heard of this place. However, there is a place called the Jade Green Demonic Valley. Is it the place you're looking for? Where is this Jade Green Demonic Valley? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked calmly. I'm not too sure about the exact location. I only know that it should be to the east of Yaoxian County. Elder Nangong scratched his head and added, I heard that it is shrouded in poisonous gas all year round. It is unpredictable and very dangerous. If you go there you must be careful. The Jade-Green Demonic Valley had a rather terrifying reputation in the world of cultivation. When Elder Nangong heard Xiao Chen's question, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. He didn't know what Xiao Chen's purpose was. However, he didn't dare to ask too much and could only remind Xiao Chen indirectly. Yes, I will. Xiao Chen nodded indifferently. He thought that the names of the Jade-Green Demonic Valley and the Jade-Green Demonic Valley were somewhat similar. They were probably the same place. It was just that the names had changed over time. When he was about to send the guest off, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something. He opened his mouth and told Elder Nangong, Oh yes, I have my own things to do recently. I may not go to Lucian County in a short period of time. When your injuries have healed, take some time to help me take care of the Burning Sky faction. When I'm done with everything you'll naturally get your share of the benefits. Look at what you're saying. What benefits? You're treating me like an outsider. It's my greatest honor to be able to help you. Elder Nangong immediately patted his chest and agreed without hesitation. That's enough for you to say, Xiao Chen smiled and waved his hand. I have nothing else to ask. You may leave. When Elder Nangong heard what Xiao Chen said, he first heaved a sigh of relief and took a step back. Suddenly, a look of hesitation appeared on his face and he hesitated to leave the room. What? Did you think of something else to tell me? Xiao Chen looked at Nangong's expression and raised his eyebrows. Hong Zhu, who had been sitting to the side, basking in the sun and enjoying the scenery, thought that Nangong was really going to leave. In the end, he couldn't help glaring at him again, thinking that this guy really doesn't know what's good for him. He doesn't care about the feelings of others at all. Elder Nangong naturally did not know what Hong Zhu was thinking. He bowed slightly and asked tentatively at Xiao Chen, Supreme Immortal Xiao, are you really going to the Jade-Green Demon Valley? Seeing Xiao Chen nod his head, Elder Nangong said sincerely, May I ask what your current strength is? It's not that I'm trying to scare you, but that place isn't a joke. You could lose your life at any time. I suggest that you think about it carefully before you go. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He also knew that Elder Nangong actually wanted to know his strength. However, he did not mind shocking this guy a little. He activated his mental cultivation method and revealed his opening mountain stage level 2 cultivation. Xiao Chen's mental cultivation method was imparted to him by the Elder Heaven Ancestor, and he cultivated it in reverse. Originally, it was more orthodox than ordinary cultivators, and his strength was also slightly higher than ordinary cultivators. Therefore, in Elder Nangong's eyes, Supreme Immortal Xiao was currently an expert of the opening mountain stage level 4 or 5, and there were faint signs that he was about to break through. With a plop, Elder Nangong, who was shocked, directly fell to the ground. His face was full of shock. How did this guy level up so quickly? Could it be that there was a shortcut? Supreme Immortal Xiao, I remember, weren't you still at the opening mountain stage level 1 a few days ago? Elder Nangong could not even speak clearly. He stuttered and asked, How did you suddenly rise to the opening mountain stage level 5? Oh, what's so great about that? When I fought with you for the first time, I was not at the opening mountain stage yet. Why didn't you feel that it was strange? Xiao Chen smiled at Elder Nangong and raised his eyebrows. Not only did he not answer his question directly, but he also deliberately kept him in suspense. Hiss! Elder Nangong then recalled the previous situation and could not help but gasp. With a bitter face he begged, Supreme Immortal, of course I felt that it was strange. Now I'm in a state of confusion. I'll have to trouble you, old man, to explain to me. Seeing Exalted Immortal Xiao level up like a rocket, Elder Nangong was tormented by his thirst for knowledge. But seeing how this guy was teasing him again, Elder Nangong wanted to cry. Yet he couldn't do anything to him. He could only lower his voice and beg. Immortal Xiao, you're the Exalted Immortal. Seeing that Elder Nangong's face was full of desire, and his eyes were almost red, Xiao Chen then said nonchalantly, What's so great about the opening mountain stage? Actually, my original strength had already reached the earth opening stage. However, because I was careless and suffered some minor injuries, my strength dropped. Now, I'm just slowly recovering. Otherwise, do you think you could have taken advantage of me back then? Earth opening stage. Elder Nangong was already scared out of his wits. He thought to himself, luckily the first time we fought, Supreme Immortal Xiao had not yet recovered his strength and was only at the peak of the profound ascension stage. In addition, I had a magic treasure to protect myself. Otherwise, I would have definitely been killed at that time. It seemed that Supreme Immortal Xiao must be the disciple of some hidden expert, and it was rare for him to come out to gain experience. After all, as far as I know, other sects have never heard of such a young earth-opening stage expert. Thinking up to this point, Elder Nangong suddenly rolled his eyes and revealed a sneaky smile. He tried to keep his voice calm and said, "That? Supreme Immortal Xiao, didn't you just ask me to take care of the Burning Sky faction?" This time Xiaoqin really did not know how to react. Weren't they just talking about the problem of levels? Why did they suddenly return to the topic of the Burning Sky faction? "Yes, what's wrong?" Xiaoqin replied casually, "Did you suddenly change your mind and don't want to take care of them anymore?" No, how is that possible?" Elder Nangong shook his head like a rattled drum. Then he used a voice that he thought was the most sincere to explain, "Taking care of the Burning Sky faction is definitely not a problem. It's just that I suddenly thought of a situation. Since I want to take care of them, I must definitely have a good reason to do so. Otherwise, if I go there rashly, others will think that I am going to monitor them." At this time, Xiaoqin had already guessed Elder Nangong's intention. He simply did not reply and only looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Seeing the expression of Supreme Immortal Xiao, Elder Nangong could only chuckle and said shamelessly, "So, I want to ask Supreme Immortal if you are still accepting disciples? This way, as a junior brother, I can go to the Burning Sky faction and explain to the two disciples that you have accepted there. Don't you think so?" Back then, Elder Nangong was still a little puzzled. Why would Gong Xiaoxi and Gong Ruidong, who were from the Burning Sky faction, be willing to accept an outsider like Xiaoqin as their master? Now he understood everything. Chapter 1485. Elder Nangong understood that Exalted Immortal Xiao must have an incomparably powerful backer. Otherwise, who would be willing to become a disciple of a yellow-haired brat? Hongzhu had just drunk a mouthful of water, but upon hearing Elder Nangong's words, he spat it all out. He couldn't help but look at Elder Nangong with a strange expression. He couldn't figure out how this old man could have the face to say such shameless words. Cough cough, all right then. Xiaoqin had already guessed Elder Nangong's intentions, so he wasn't too surprised. Clearing his throat, he said, "This exalted immortal will temporarily accept you as an in-name disciple." In-name disciple? Elder Nangong was about to rejoice when he heard the first half of Xiaoqin's sentence, but when he heard that Xiaoqin would only accept him as an in-name disciple, his excitement was immediately extinguished. One had to know that in-name disciple was just a title. It wasn't a true disciple of the sect. Instead, one could be kicked out of the sect at any time. And from now on, it will depend on your performance. If you can satisfy me, I will turn you into an official disciple. At that time, I might even be able to guide you on the path of cultivation. Xiaoqin nodded very naturally. In any case, he had already accepted 2 disciples, so it didn't matter if he accepted one more. Moreover, Elder Nangong had the backing of the Profound Cloud sect, so it would be much more convenient to do things. As for accepting Elder Nangong as an in-name disciple, it was because Xiaoqin was afraid that if he directly accepted him as a disciple, Elder Nangong wouldn't be attentive enough when taking care of the Burning Sky sect. If he left a thought for him, perhaps it would have a miraculous effect. "Ah. Thank you, Exalted Immortal Xiao. No, thank you, Master, for your kindness." Hearing Xiaoqin's promise, Elder Nangong's mood immediately brightened up. Beaming with joy, he patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, from today onwards, Burning Sky sect will be left to me. As long as I am alive, I will not allow anyone to touch even a single hair of their sect." Hongzhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he rolled his eyes at Elder Nangong. This guy was really crazy with joy. Who would use a single hair to describe a sect? Wasn't he afraid of making others laugh their heads off? Elder Nangong did not notice at all. He solemnly bowed to Xiaoqin to acknowledge him as his master. Then he said respectfully, "Then I'll take my leave first. I'll go back and brew the medicine. I won't disturb your rest." After receiving Xiaoqin's acknowledgement, Elder Nangong went back to his room happily. His master was really too powerful. Not only could he heal old wounds, he could even completely heal broken meridians, but his own strength was also frighteningly high. This time, Master was had Nanyang had thought. As he thought about it, Elder Nangong's thoughts floated even more. He thought that if he could get to know that hidden master through his master, as long as there was a little bit of connection, the status of the profound cloud sect would definitely rise. It wouldn't be long before they could suppress the Huanshan Pavilion and become the #1 sect in the cultivation world. Elder Nangong seemed to be able to see the blueprint of the future. He was laughing so hard in his room that his eyebrows could barely be seen. As he prepared the medicine, he hummed a little tune as happy as a child. Xiaoqin didn't think as much as Elder Nangong. After sending off Elder Nangong, he and Hongzhu began to pack up their belongings, preparing to leave Yaoxian province and head east. They planned to inquire about the location of the dark green demonic valley as they traveled. Although the Elder Heaven Ancestor hadn't said what treasures he had hidden in there, Xiaoqin still wanted to obtain those things as soon as possible under the great temptation of treasures. That way he would be able to increase his own strength. Fortunately, he would have a stronger support in the process of searching for people. After 2 days of recuperation, Elder Nangong was surprised to find that he had completely recovered. Not only did all the meridians in his body that had been broken by Xiaoqin completely recover, even the small injuries and pains that he had suffered when he was cultivating in the past were completely healed. His strength had also returned to its previous level. Although he was happy, Elder Nangong still had some doubts. According to his disciples' feedback, Gong Ruidong seemed to have spent half a month from the beginning of his treatment to the point where he could walk. Why did it only take him 2 days? After thinking about it, Elder Nangong could only think that it was because his injuries were new and not old wounds like Gong Ruidong's. Therefore his recovery would be faster. No matter what, he had already fully recovered. Feeling the abundant vitality in his body, Elder Nangong was filled with even more admiration towards exalted immortal Xiao. There was no longer a trace of doubt, and he was dead set on becoming exalted immortal Xiao's disciple. However, when he thought of this, Elder Nangong felt a little guilty. He felt that he was only a nominal disciple now. It was really not very safe. What if Xiaoqin returned and refused to acknowledge him? Wouldn't it be like drawing water with a sieve? After pondering for a long time, Elder Nangong decided to go to Burning Sky faction personally and think of a way to build a good relationship with big senior brother Gong Xiaoxi and second senior brother Gong Ruidong. In this way, when Xiaoqin returned, he could ask his 2 senior brothers to put in a few good words for him. Maybe Xiaoqin would agree to let him become an official disciple. After making up his mind, Elder Nangong could no longer sit still. He rushed back to the faction overnight and picked a few of his close subordinates. He ordered them to prepare all kinds of treasures, as well as a number of spiritual crystals and magical equipment as a greeting gift. Then he rushed towards Lucian County without stopping. Early the next morning in the plaza of the Burning Sky faction, Gong Xiaoxi and Gong Ruidong were teaching the sect's disciples how to cultivate. The 2 of them would occasionally whisper to each other, discussing how to quickly increase their strength. When the group of people was in full swing, they heard footsteps coming from afar. A guard who was guarding the door ran over in a panic. Grand Elder, Deacon Elder. Not good. The guard was out of breath from running. His face looked a little pale. It was obvious that he was quite frightened. When he spoke, he was panting. What's going on? Why are you so impatient? Let's talk this out. Gong Ruidong frowned and reprimanded with some dissatisfaction. It's Elder Nangong from Xianyun sect again. The guard's voice was a little shaky. This time he brought a group of people with him. He specially asked for the 2 of you. He said that he has something important to discuss with you. Nangong? Why is he here again? Gong Xiaoxi and Gong Ruidong looked at each other and muttered in confusion. Chapter 1486. Gong Xiaoxi thought that Elder Nangong had come to provoke them again, but exalted immortal Xiao was not in the sect, and he and his father could not deal with him alone. Not to mention Duan Suqing, he couldn't even stand up to one of his fingers. Gong Ruidong's expression was a bit ugly, because he saw a few people quickly walking towards him, and the one leading them was Elder Nangong. His mind was filled with questions. Wasn't this guy taken away by exalted immortal Xiao? Why did he come back by himself? Moreover, looking at the way he walked over, it seemed that even his injuries had recovered. What was going on? Did something happen to exalted immortal Xiao? The more Gong Ruidong thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly ordered the disciples to be on full alert. For a moment, everyone was as if they were facing a great enemy, and could not be bothered with cultivation anymore. They all stood in a few rows, staring at the approaching group of people. Although the disciples standing in the back did not hear what Gong Ruidong said, they were keenly aware that the atmosphere was not right. A few timid disciples looked at each other for a while, and decided to sneak away to inform Duan Suqing. Haha, I trust you two have been well since we last met? How have you been recently? Gong Ruidong and Gong Shaoxi heard Elder Nangong's hearty laughter coming from afar, and for a moment, they were a bit confused. The last time this guy came he did not seem to be this enthusiastic? Just as the two of them were feeling puzzled, Elder Nangong had already arrived in front of everyone with a smile. He first turned around and signaled the disciples to put down all the big and small bags of gifts. Elder Nangong, what do you mean by this? What are these things? Gong Shaoxi was the first to lose his cool and asked. Calm down you two. Elder Nangong turned around with a face full of smiles, and said to the two of them, these are just a small token of my appreciation. There isn't anything good, just some natural treasures and spirit crystals. I hope that the two of you can look at this old man's sincerity and let bygones be bygones, and get along well with each other from now on. Elder Nangong, I don't quite understand what you mean. Looking at the big wooden boxes that were neatly placed not far away, Gong Ruidong asked with slight confusion, I wonder why you are here today? There doesn't seem to be any friendship between us, right? Gong Ruidong, who was originally on high alert, was now at a loss. What was this guy trying to do? Why did he send something over for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to play some tricks again? It seems like Senior Gong has not forgiven me. Previously, I have indeed offended you a lot, willfully and rashly did many wrong things, and caused a lot of trouble for the Burning Sky faction. Elder Nangong said with an ashamed expression. Then he quickly stepped forward and grabbed Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong's hands. The two of them were startled. They thought that Elder Nangong was going to launch a sneak attack. They released their essence and covered their bodies with it, preparing to counterattack at any moment. But before the two of them could make a move, Elder Nangong suddenly bowed to them and sincerely apologized. Senior brothers, I hope you two can be magnanimous and not bicker with me, okay? This time, Junior brother has specially brought a gift to apologize, hoping to get the two senior brothers' forgiveness. Gong Ruidong was already dumbfounded. He couldn't figure out what was wrong with Elder Nangong. He subconsciously turned to look at Gong Shaoxi and found that he was also staring blankly at Elder Nangong. He was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. At this moment, Duan Suqing just happened to rush over with the rest of the disciples, ready to support Gong Ruidong and the others. But when he saw the respectful appearance of Elder Nangong on the square, and the way he bowed his head to Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong, his mind was a little confused. Duan Suqing rubbed his eyes and found that he wasn't seeing things. The scene in front of him was indeed real. He couldn't help but think to himself, how did this old guy become mentally ill after being caught by Upper Immortal Shao? He actually did such an unimaginable thing. Could it be that when he went back to heal, he accidentally went mad? Have you been beaten silly by my master, Exalted Immortal Shao? Otherwise, why would you suddenly come over to apologize? After a long silence, Gong Shaoxi finally couldn't help but ask. Gong Shaoxi had always been straightforward, and he saw that Elder Nangong seemed to be quite sincere and didn't look like he was here to cause trouble, so he let his guard down a little. It's like this. Master Upper Immortal Shao has successfully cured me. You see, there are no injuries on my body at all. Even my legs and feet are much more agile than before. Speaking of this, Elder Nangong was even more delighted. In order to prove that he wasn't lying, he specially jumped twice on the spot and stretched his muscles. He looked a little funny in front of the crowd. Then why do you call my father and me senior brother? You didn't join our Burning Sky faction. Gong Shaoxi looked up and down at the lively Elder Nangong. He remembered what he had just said and asked curiously. Gong Ruidong's eyes flashed. He had already captured the details in Elder Nangong's words. This fellow had just addressed Exalted Immortal Shao as his master. He knew what was going on the moment he heard it. This fellow had probably become Exalted Immortal Zhao's disciple. As expected, Elder Nangong smiled embarrassedly and said, It's not that I joined the Burning Sky faction, but Upper Immortal Shao saw that my talent is not bad, so he took me in as his third disciple. In the future, I will have to ask the two senior brothers to take care of little junior brother. So that's how it is, I was wondering. Gong Shaoxi finally understood. Elder Nangong must have realized that Upper Immortal Shao Master was very strong, so he shamelessly wanted to be his disciple. Upper Immortal Shao Master must have been annoyed by Elder Nangong's pestering and simply agreed. Then he sent this guy to Burning Sky faction to report. After understanding the whole story, Gong Shaoxi finally relaxed and nodded. He puffed out his chest and said proudly, All right then. Since Upper Immortal Shao Master said so, then we will naturally recognize you as our junior brother. From now on I am the eldest senior brother. You have to listen to me in everything. This is your second senior brother who is also my biological father. Sometimes I have to listen to him. You are the youngest, so you have to listen to him even more. Do you understand? Gong Ruidong, who was standing at the side, also raised his eyelids and looked at Elder Nangong. He patted him on the shoulder with great vigor and taught him sincerely, "This junior brother of yours is not bad. He knows to admit his mistakes and change. That's good. Since we are all Upper Immortal Shao Master's disciples, and you have come to apologize so sincerely, we are not unreasonable people. We will not argue with you about what happened before. Be a good person in the future." Chapter 1487. Of course. Greetings, eldest senior brother. Greetings, second senior brother. Elder Nangong's goal was achieved. He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He hurriedly bowed to the two of them. Gong Ruitong and Gong Shaoxi naturally wouldn't refuse, so they accepted it very calmly. In their eyes, Elder Nangong was no longer a scourge that came to find trouble, but the youngest and lightest junior brother in their eyes. Elder Nangong was excited for a while. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes and suggested, "Senior brothers, I have a suggestion. Why don't we become sworn brothers? I don't know where I heard a story before. It was said that 3 strangers became sworn brothers in a peach garden. The 3 of them kowtowed to the ground and escorted their master to the west to obtain Buddhist scriptures. Their names were passed down through the ages." What nonsense is this? Where did you hear such a strange story? Gong Shaoxi was confused and rolled his eyes at Elder Nangong. He thought that this third junior brother must have been beaten silly by exalted Immortal Shao. Otherwise, why would he say such strange things? Duan Suqing, who had been waiting at the side, was also very happy after he figured out the reason. He didn't have any objection to being called senior brother or junior brother. Everyone knew that Elder Nangong was from the Profound Cloud sect. Now that he and Gong Ruidong had a master relationship, it meant that the Profound Cloud sect would support the Burning Sky faction. It also meant that he didn't have to be afraid of the Secluded Forest sect or other sects coming to provoke him. The more Duan Suqing thought about it, the happier he was. He immediately ordered his disciples to prepare a banquet at the biggest restaurant in the town. Then, he ran to the study room to prepare a suitable invitation to announce this news to the world. Elder Nangong, Gong Ruidong and Gong Shaoxi were already chatting happily. He patted his chest and said that he wouldn't return to the Profound Cloud sect for the time being. He planned to stay in the Burning Sky faction. On one hand, he could get close to his 2 senior brothers. On the other hand, he could help the Burning Sky faction improve its strength. By the way, third junior brother, if you come to the Burning Sky faction and don't go back to the Profound Cloud sect, will your sect master let you do this and not blame you? Gong Shaoxi heard Elder Nangong's plan and couldn't help but ask. In Gong Shaoxi's opinion, Elder Nangong was a master at the Profound Ascension stage after all. Since the Profound Cloud sect had trained him for so many years, they wouldn't let him run around so easily. They would probably call him back sooner or later. Eldest senior brother, that's why there's a saying that we're not from the same family. The smile on Elder Nangong's face widened when he heard Gong Shaoxi's question. What do you mean? Gong Shaoxi was confused by Elder Nangong's words. Look, my second senior brother's uncle, who is also eldest senior brother's father, is the Grand Elder of the Burning Sky faction, right? Elder, so, everyone in senior brother. Senior brother. Senior brother. Senior brother. Senior brother Yun Profound Senior Yun said, smiled and senior brother senior. Everyone's senior brother. So. Senior brother senior brother. Senior brother. Senior brother. I see. Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong finally understood. No wonder this guy could come and go as he pleased. He could even command the disciples of the Profound Cloud sect. It turned out that he was also a second-generation cultivator. After knowing the reason, the two didn't ask anymore. There were many masters in the Profound Cloud sect. It didn't matter. Moreover, if Elder Nangong came to the Burning Sky faction, it would bring more benefits than harm to their sect. So, they might as well let him stay. While the 3 of them were chatting enthusiastically, a disciple came to inform everyone that the banquet in the town's restaurant was ready. Gong Ruidong and Gong Shaoxi exchanged a few more polite words with Elder Nangong. Seeing Duan Suqing walking over with a smile on his face, they left the Burning Sky faction under the lead of the sect master and headed towards the restaurant. Elder Nangong wanted to stay in the Burning Sky faction, so he naturally had his own plans. He planned to work hard and do something useful. After all, before Upper Deity Shao left, he had only instructed him to do this one thing. If he could do this well, when Upper Deity Shao returned, he might be happy enough to give him a permanent position. While the Burning Sky faction was bustling, the Great Master was reporting to the other side of the cultivation world. In the secret room of the Bandit branch, the Great Master was reporting. Although it was a report, the First Master was actually the only one in the secret room. In the middle of the secret room, there was a crystal cover that shone with a faint purple light. It looked beautiful, and if one looked closer, they would discover a faintly discernible human-shaped Yuan Shen inside. The lines of the body made it seem like a woman. Meanwhile, the great leader was currently standing respectfully beside the crystal barrier, reporting the recent happenings to the human-shaped primordial spirit. Master, the Cultivator we found a few days ago has finished her cultivation. She is now at the nascent soul great perfection. She can go to the secret realm and carry out the mission. The Great Master hesitated for a moment, but he still told the truth. But there is still a small flaw. Thinking of Nie Xiaoyu's situation, the Great Master couldn't help but frown. He thought that with the abundant elixirs in the storage, he would be able to smoothly raise the level of this little girl. He didn't expect that there would still be a problem. What happened? Don't dawdle. If you have a problem, say it. I don't like to waste time. It was unknown which part of the humanoid primordial spirit came from. It just hovered back and forth in the air above the secret chamber. It sounded like a robot without any emotion. It's like this. Because that guy is at the last few levels of the nascent soul stage, our heaven and earth treasures are seriously lacking. But the matter of leveling up cannot be delayed, so I used the injection that you provided. The Great Master's voice was a little weak. The human-shaped primordial spirit didn't say anything else. It seemed to be waiting for the Great Master to continue. The Great Master took a deep breath and said bitterly, after using the injection, her body showed signs of serious rejection. Although we helped her to level up to the nascent soul great perfection, the aura in her body became very unstable. She could explode and die at any time. The Great Master was really depressed. He finally found a cultivator who was suitable in all aspects like Nie Xiaoyu. But her strength was extremely low, ridiculously low. Chapter 1488. Previously, the Great Master wanted to rely on the abundant medicinal herbs to help Nie Xiaoyu level up. Unexpectedly, before she could reach the full circle of the original infant stage, all the heaven and earth treasures in the storage were used up. At that time, Nie Xiaoyu was at a critical juncture of leveling up. If she could not level up, it was very likely that she would be stuck forever. The Great Master thought about it and had no choice but to use a special injection. In the end, the effect of the breakthrough was achieved. However, the current situation was not stable at all. She could only rely on other medicinal herbs to maintain her original condition. Indeed, I can't count on you. The primordial spirit seemed to be a little angry, and there was a slight fluctuation in its voice. The Great Master lowered her head in fear and trepidation, waiting for her master to continue scolding her. However, she did not continue to scold them. She just pondered for a moment, then reported the names of several medicinal herbs and the method of concocting them. She then added, although it is a temporary solution, there is no other way. We can only make do with it for now. When the Great Master heard the names of the medicinal herbs reported by the primordial spirit, she immediately took a pen and paper on the table and began to write it down familiarly. When she was done, the primordial spirit continued to instruct, what I provided you just now is a high-end stabilizer formula. It can temporarily suppress the effects of the medicinal herbs in her body. That's great. Thank you for your gift, Master. The Great Master was overjoyed and nodded. She immediately put away the formula carefully. Don't be too happy yet. This thing also has its flaws. The humanoid primordial spirit mercilessly poured a bucket of cold water on the Great Master. Its shortcoming is that it needs to be injected frequently. Moreover, because the medicinal effect is relatively strong, it is also very harmful to cultivators. Anyway, once it's used up, the little girl will have no value anymore. You just need to ensure that she doesn't die before you get that thing. The rest is up to you. Okay? I will immediately ask my men to concoct the stabilizer for the Cultivator to take. After the effects are seen, I will arrange the rest. I won't disturb your rest for now. The great leader nodded obediently. After waiting for a while, seeing that the humanoid primordial spirit seemed to have nothing else to say, he bowed and silently left the secret chamber, turning around and walking towards the pharmacy. After the stabilizer was prepared, the Great Master immediately handed it to the Second Master and told him to personally escort Nie Xiaoyu to the secret realm to carry out the next mission. He also specially dispatched a few profound ascending stage masters to go with her. It could be seen that the things in the secret realm were extremely important. The second in charge naturally did not dare to delay. He quickly packed his luggage and set off with Nie Xiaoyu. Fortunately, their branch wasn't too far away from the mystic realm. After a day and a night of sleepless trekking, Second Elder and the others finally arrived outside the mystic realm. The second in charge didn't have time to rest. Because he didn't know how long Nie Xiaoyu would be gone for, he first ordered the profound ascending stage masters to build a simple camp so that they could wait outside. Then he took out a stabilizer and injected it into Nie Xiaoyu's arm. After the injection, the second in charge took out a small monitoring device from somewhere and handed it to Nie Xiaoyu. Then he solemnly instructed, "Tie this monitoring device to your body, and then we'll open the magic formation to let you in. Don't dawdle inside, find the materials we need as soon as possible, and come out after you've collected them." Nie Xiaoyu was very quiet along the way. She didn't know if it was because of some mistakes in her cultivation, but her skin looked whiter than before, even faintly transparent. She obediently took the device and looked at it. She always felt that this thing seemed a little familiar. It was similar to a camera in the secular world, but it was not so big. It was relatively smaller. Seeing Nie Xiaoyu's action, the second in charge cleared his throat and said seriously, "Don't think about throwing away the device and running away. There is only one entrance and exit in this mystic realm. You can go in and complete the task with peace of mind. After you succeed, you can regain your freedom." "Oh, I know." Nie Xiaoyu hesitated for a moment, but she still didn't say her request to release Cheng Menjing. She planned to mention this matter after she finished collecting the materials. Maybe then she would be more confident. Carefully tying the device to her body, Nie Xiaoyu moved her hands and feet. Looking at the valley hidden behind the clouds, she had a feeling of uneasiness in her heart. Her strength had indeed improved by leaps and bounds in the past few days, but she felt that it was not solid at all. Later, she directly used some suspicious drugs, causing the fluctuation of yuan qi in her body to gradually become uncontrollable. Although Nie Xiaoyu felt that the rampaging yuan qi in her body had gradually calmed down after the second in charge injected her with the stabilizer, she still felt a little uneasy. The second in charge seemed to know what Nie Xiaoyu was thinking, and he said again, "Remember, your current strength is still not very stable. The medicine you injected just now can only last for 1 day. There are still a few vials of medicine in the bag on your back. If you feel that something is wrong, you must inject yourself immediately. Otherwise the consequences will be very serious. Do you remember?" Seeing Nie Xiaoyu nodded obediently, the second in charge did not say more. He gathered the few masters of the mysterious ascending stage and walked to a slightly blurred array on the edge of the valley. The second in charge first took out a few spirit crystals and embedded them in a few corners of the array. Then he motioned Nie Xiaoyu to come over and stand in the center of the array. After everyone stood still, the second in charge taught Nie Xiaoyu a few simple hand gestures, and then began to ask everyone to activate the spirit crystals and exert the energy of the spirit crystals. Several people ran their mental cultivation method at the same time and injected yuan qi into the spirit crystals. The spirit crystals shone slightly, and then the vague traces of the array gradually became brighter, forming a trace of an array. "Now!" the second in charge shouted at Nie Xiaoyu. Nie Xiaoyu responded and made the hand gestures that the second in charge taught her just now. With a swoosh, an extremely bright light suddenly bloomed in the array. Everyone couldn't help but squint their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, they found that there was no one in the array, and the spirit crystals had consumed most of their energy, becoming a little dim. "Okay, let's just wait on the side." Seeing that Nie Xiaoyu had already teleported in, the second in charge waved his hand and led everyone back to the camp on the side. He turned on another device used for surveillance and waited patiently for the news. Chapter 1489. Nie Xiaoyu had already closed her eyes tightly before the strong light was emitted, so she only felt her body tremble slightly, and then everything returned to normal. After waiting patiently for a while, Nie Xiaoyu did not hear anyone beside her, so she tentatively opened her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she was stunned by the scene in front of her. She was in a deep valley, surrounded by lush foliage and lush vegetation, but all the plants looked strange, not quite the same as the ones outside. Upon closer inspection, One would also notice that the air here was not as clear and pure as it was outside. Instead, there was a faint green mist lingering in the air. The deeper one ventured into the pocket dimension, the darker the color of the mist became. Although Xiaoyu did not need to breathe like a normal human, she could tell that the green mist should be highly toxic just by looking at it. If an ordinary person breathed in a little, they would probably die on the spot. Xiaoyu walked into the depths of the secret realm with small steps. After walking for a while, she found that the green poisonous gas would also adhere to human skin, seep into the body through the pores and poison people. She had only walked a few hundred steps, but her skin had already become a little green. At this time, Xiaoyu could only be glad that she was now a living dead person, and the poisonous gas could not have any effect on her at all. She suddenly understood why the second leader and the others sent her into this secret realm. It must be because of this poisonous gas. Although Xiaoyu had an umbrella with her, this deep valley seemed to have no sunlight, so it did not make much difference whether she held an umbrella or not. For convenience's sake, she simply carried the umbrella on her back, freeing her hands to search for heaven and earth treasures more efficiently. However, things did not go according to her wishes. After carefully searching in the secret realm for a long time, Xiaoyu still did not find anything. Instead, she encountered some spirit beasts that had mutated because they had been absorbing poisonous gas for years. Those mutated spirit beasts were very aggressive, and they would directly pounce on Xiaoyu as soon as they saw her. Fortunately, their levels were not too high, so she could easily deal with them, but it also wasted a lot of time. Strange, didn't the second leader say that the thing is very easy to find? Xiaoyu searched for a while and stopped in front of a forest. She muttered to herself with a surprised expression, "I haven't seen a single treasure after such a long time. Could it be that the treasure has all withered or has been taken by someone else?" Xiaoyu frowned and tried to recall. She remembered that when the second head enforcer described the heavenly treasure, he said that it was a kind of dark purple flower with some tiny barbs on its rhizome and 3 round green leaves. It should be a gregarious flower that grew in one place. Although Xiaoyu had seen a lot of exotic flowers and plants along the way, she didn't find any that matched the description of the second head keeper, which made her even more puzzled. Xiaoyu didn't expect to complete the task in a short time, but in theory she should at least collect 1 or 2. Otherwise, this situation would be too unimaginable. Whoosh! Just as Xiaoyu was pondering over it, a white thing suddenly flashed past in the forest in front of her. The white shadow seemed to be quite huge and it was very fast. It was basically impossible to tell what it was with the naked eye. Oh, who's there? Xiaoyu woke up from her thoughts and was startled. She hurriedly used her mental cultivation method and got into a stance. Her eyes swept across the forest vigilantly, ready to deal with any sudden situation. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no movement in the forest. Xiaoyu pursed her lips in confusion. She felt that she might have worried too much. How could there be a living person in such a place full of poisonous gas? It was probably some mutated beast that wanted to sneak attack her, but after seeing her strength they retreated. Thinking of this, Xiaoyu didn't pay too much attention to it. She once again embarked on the journey of looking for the heavenly treasure. However, she didn't let down her guard. She released her divine sense within a certain range and carefully explored the surroundings, in case she was caught off guard and attacked by mutated beasts. As she searched, the sky gradually darkened, and the green mist in the mystic realm became thicker. With the dim light and the green mist blocking her vision, Xiaoyu could no longer see her surroundings clearly with her naked eyes. She could only rely on her divine sense to feel her way forward bit by bit. Roar! Just as Xiaoyu was concentrating on her search, a wild beast's roar suddenly came from behind. Along with the loud roar, there was a series of rapid and heavy footsteps. It seemed that something was approaching Xiaoyu at an extremely fast speed. Xiaoyu's face tensed up. She immediately used her divine sense to explore, but she didn't find anything. However, the powerful aura behind her that was getting closer and closer was enough to prove that it was an unknown species with a much higher cultivation than her. Xiaoyu suddenly turned her head and looked, but she could only see a blurry white figure shuttling back and forth in the forest not far away from her. She couldn't detect it with her divine sense at all. An ominous premonition made Xiaoyu panic. Driven by a strong desire to survive, the primordial qi in her body surged rapidly, and her arms were instantly completely covered by black gas. After gathering her primordial qi, Xiaoyu immediately pushed a few palms in the direction of the white figure, trying to drive away the thing hiding in the forest. Boom boom boom. With the explosion of primordial chi, continuous explosions sounded in the forest, followed by the sound of trees falling to the ground. After a series of chaotic sounds, the surroundings returned to silence after a while. Roar! Just when Xiaoyu thought that she had successfully driven that thing away, a chilling roar came again. Moreover, the roar this time was obviously not the same as before. It was louder and more tyrannical. It sounded like the beast was enraged, and its footsteps on the ground seemed to be even more hurried. At this moment, due to being in a state of high tension for a long time, Xiaoyu's mood had become more and more irritable. She could also clearly feel the primordial qi in her body beginning to riot, constantly rushing at her meridians. It seemed to be a sign of qi deviation. Xiaoyu knew that something was wrong. She immediately took out an injection from her backpack, aimed it at the artery on her arm, and was about to stab it in. However, before Xiaoyu could complete the injection, heavy footsteps approached from afar. Before Xiaoyu could look up, she felt that she was hit by something hard. She was involuntarily flung several meters away and smashed into a big tree with a loud bang. Chapter 1490. Although Xiaoyu was a living dead and was not very sensitive to pain and touch, she could still feel her whole body spinning at this time. Then she smashed hard under the tree, blacked out, and directly fell into a coma. The monitoring device tied to Xiaoyu also fell off her body due to the violent shock and fell on the ground not far away. In the camp outside the secret realm, the second master was frowning, holding another monitoring device in his hand and staring at it. In the monitoring screen, Xiaoyu's face was full of wounds caused by the air currents of the branches. Although there was no blood flowing out, it looked very terrible. At this time, she was paralyzed beside the big tree with her eyes closed and unconscious. Before the second master could react, there was a new movement in the screen. A white hoof slowly fell down and directly trampled Xiaoyu's monitoring device into pieces. Then the screen on the second master's side disappeared completely. Damn it! It's bullshit. What the hell is that thing? Seeing this scene, the second master couldn't help but fly into a rage. He paced around the camp like a trapped beast and cursed loudly for a few times. Then he calmed down a little. After taking a few deep breaths, the second master carefully put away the remaining monitoring device. Then he took out a sound-transmitting talisman from his arms and put it in the basin that he had prepared. He planned to report this unexpected situation to the first master. After learning the news, the first master was also very depressed. Who would have thought that Xiaoyu would be so unlucky as to be killed by a wild beast? Wasn't this too unlucky? Now that Xiaoyu's lead was definitely broken, the great master had no choice but to ask the second master to withdraw from the camp with his subordinates. Then they would think of other ways to enter the secret realm to collect medicinal herbs. Outside the east gate of Yaoxian County, Xiaoqun carried a small bundle on his back as he walked out of the crowd with Hongzhu in tow. He walked to a remote place where no one would pay attention to him, stepped onto his flying sword and flew east. He was prepared to ask around along the way in search of the Jade Green Devil Valley. At this time, a man and a woman entered the inn where they had just paid the bill and left. "Sister Tang Tang, why don't we stay in this inn? I have a sense of déjà vu about this place. Perhaps Xiaoqun Appa had stayed here before?" Yu Xiaochuan looked at the environment of the inn carefully. From time to time, she stretched her nose and sniffed around. She cupped her hands and showed a satisfied expression. "Don't be disgusting, okay? You called him Brother Xiao before. How did you become Xiaoqun Appa after coming in? Watch less Korean TV series in the future. It's not nutritious at all and you'll damage your brain." Tang Tang rolled her eyes and said angrily, "You're so annoying." "Sister Tang, don't make fun of me." Yu Xiaochuan stamped her feet and pouted. Tang Tang shook her head helplessly. She looked around and whispered, "I think the decoration of this inn is quite high-end. I guess it won't be too cheap. We don't have many spirit crystals left. You have to save money." "Don't worry. I'll just go and get some more spiritual crystals after I run out." Yu Xiaochuan smiled sweetly at Tang Tang and said softly, "In any case, I can't let you suffer. Otherwise, how can I face Xiaoqun Appa?" Without waiting for Tang Tang to say anything, Yu Xiaochuan had already run to the manager and booked 2 rooms. Then he ordered some dishes and took Tang Tang to a table to sit down. He was going to inquire about Xiao Chen's news after eating and drinking. "Yu Xiaochuan, don't blame me for not reminding you in advance. There are many masters in the world of cultivators. Don't steal things just because you're powerful. If you're found, I can't save you no matter what I do." Tang Tang sat down, but she still frowned and said worriedly, When Tang Tang and Yu Shaochuan first came to the world of cultivators, they were as confused as others. At first they looked for Xiao Chen and the others like headless flies. As a result, after a few days not only did they return without success, but they were also hungry and cold. After understanding the situation here, the two could only choose to work for others first. After solving the problem of food and clothing and earning some travel expenses, they dared to continue to look for Xiao Chen. I'm now a master at the second level of the profound ascension stage. Unless I meet the bad guys from the big sects, basically no one is my opponent. In fact, there's nothing to be afraid of in the world of cultivators. Yu Shaochuan said with a smile, then took out a mirror and cosmetics from the package and carefully touched up his makeup. After coming to the world of cultivators, Yu Shaochuan found that the chrysanthemum treasure book that he cultivated was very suitable for cultivation in this place. Not only could it absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth very quickly, but it could also absorb anything. Whether it was the best treasure of heaven and earth, or the wildflowers and weeds that grew everywhere in the suburbs, even an ordinary meal could increase a little bit of cultivation. Although he didn't understand the principle behind it, Yu Shaochuan naturally wouldn't let go of such a great opportunity. During this time he cultivated crazily. In just a few months he had broken through to the profound ascension stage. On the contrary, Tang Tang didn't know how to cultivate, so she was still at the venerable stage. Yu Shaochuan once wanted to teach her the chrysanthemum treasure book, but was ruthlessly rejected by Tang Tang. She didn't want to be like a garbage can, stuffing everything she saw into her mouth. Since Yu Shaochuan's strength grew rapidly, he began to feel that working for others not only took a long time, but also the amount of spirit crystals he earned was too little. So he simply began to steal spirit crystals for a living. Of course he was not stupid. The spirit crystals he stole every time were only a little bit, as long as it was enough for his travel expenses and living expenses. If he could occasionally find some treasures of heaven and earth to assist in his cultivation, he would be very satisfied. Tang Tang naturally opposed Yu Shaochuan's approach, but she had no other good way to solve the problem of food and clothing. She could only helplessly choose to turn a blind eye. Now that Yu Shaochuan mentioned the old matter again, she couldn't help but try to persuade him again, but unfortunately she couldn't persuade him. Whatever you want. Seeing that she couldn't persuade Yu Shaochuan to change his mind, Tang Tang had to no longer insist, but change the topic. By the way, your strength seems to have stayed at the second level of the profound ascension stage for a long time, right? Why haven't you leveled up recently? Is there something wrong with your cultivation method? I think your cultivation method is a bit strange, it's better to be careful. Chapter 1491. Thank you for your concern, Sister Tang Tang. In fact, I also feel strange. Maybe at this stage, if I want to advance further, I will need a lot of treasures of heaven and earth to assist in my cultivation. Yu Shaochuan held his cheeks and muttered, when I ate those treasures of heaven and earth before, my level increased quite fast. It seems that I have to think of a way. Yu Shaochuan didn't finish his words, but his eyes kept turning, wondering if he could find another sect to steal some treasures of heaven and earth, so that he would have a chance to advance to a higher level. Tang Tang saw through Yu Shaochuan's thoughts at a glance, and directly exposed his idea of being a thief. You're not thinking of going to the major sects to steal treasures of heaven and earth again, right? I advise you to give up this idea as soon as possible. Now that you have the cultivation of the mysterious ascension stage, it's better to go to the Dada Immortal Cultivator's Chamber of Commerce to work. With your strength, you can also receive some high-level tasks, which is much better than taking the risk of stealing. Okay, then I'll listen to you. After lunch, let's go to the Chamber of Commerce to take a look. Yu Shaochuan was lectured by Tang Tang, and had no choice but to nod helplessly, and agreed with a melancholy face. At this time the waiter had already served the dishes. Before he had time to put the dishes down, Yu Shaochuan suddenly asked, "Hey little brother, have you seen Xiao Chen Appa? He is a particularly tall and powerful handsome guy. Not only is he handsome but his strength is also very strong. He's very powerful." The waiter was a little dumbfounded. He originally thought that the guy in front of him was just a flat-chested woman, but the voice turned out to be that of a man. This guy who was neither a man nor a woman made the waiter a little nauseous, but the other party was a customer who came to spend, and he couldn't afford to offend him. He had to use the fastest speed in his life to put the dishes down, then shook his head, indicating that he didn't see it, and immediately turned around and ran away. Humph, you've never seen the world before. You're so shy when you see a slightly prettier beauty. Do you think that she dressed up for you? Yu Shaochuan glared angrily at the waiter who had run away and scolded angrily. After cursing, Yu Shaochuan picked up the mirror and looked at his reflection in self-pity. He muttered, "If it wasn't for the fact that I don't know when I'll run into Shaochuan Appa and have to maintain my best condition at all times, I wouldn't let a country bumpkin like you look at me." Tang Tang noticed that the guests around them were looking at her with strange expressions. She coughed a few times and urged, all right. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Hurry up and eat. We still have business to attend to later." "Well, Sister Tang, eat more. I have to keep my figure. I can't be as intemperate as you." Yu Shaochuan nodded shyly. She smiled and picked up a few pieces of meat and put them in Tang Tang's bowl. Then she picked up some vegetables for herself and ate them in small bites. She was very careful to maintain her ladle-like image. Tang Tang was about to explode when she heard Yu Shaochuan's words. Due to so many people watching, she couldn't go too far. She had to suppress her anger and turn it into appetite. She gnashed her teeth and wolfed down the food. In any case, Tang Tang had never cared so much about her image. After becoming a cultivator, it was not easy for her to gain weight. Her plan was to fill her stomach as soon as possible and then leave for the next stop. That was why she let loose and ate. After lunch, the two of them put their luggage in the room. Then, they asked the waiter for the address of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce. They left the inn and strolled along the street. Since they were not familiar with the environment of Yaoxian County, it took Tang Tang and Yu Shaochuan nearly half an hour to walk to the location of the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce. "Hello ladies, guess. May I ask if the two of you are here to work, or would you like to hire our Chamber of Commerce to serve you?" The receptionist standing at the entrance of the Chamber of Commerce greeted the two of them naturally. However, he was stunned as soon as he opened his mouth. He originally wanted to address the two of them as ladies, but he couldn't judge Yu Shaochuan's gender at the moment, so he had to temporarily change his words. "We are here to look for a job, but we have already commissioned a task from the Chamber of Commerce before. This time we also want to check the progress of the task." Tang Tang didn't care about the receptionist's change of words because she was already used to it. Yu Shaochuan's attire that was neither male nor female was easy to attract the attention and suspicion of strangers. However, she couldn't correct him. Over time, Tang Tang didn't take it to heart. "Okay, please come with me." The receptionist nodded and made a gesture with a smile. The two of them followed the receptionist to the front of the counter and took a few forms that the receptionist took out from the drawer. When they were bowing their heads to read, the receptionist said again, "Please tell me your names and your current cultivation level. Please report truthfully. I need to see what level of task you are capable of and whether you can meet the requirements of the employer." "Okay, her name is Tang Tang and my name is Yu Shaochuan. Her cultivation level is a master at the peak of the Venerable Realm, and I have been promoted to the Profound Ascension." Before Yu Shaochuan finished his words, he felt Tang Tang suddenly pull him. Yu Shaochuan stopped talking and turned his head with a blank face. He blinked at Tang Tang in confusion, not knowing what he said wrong. Tang Tang didn't have time to explain more to Yu Shaochuan. She first gave him a wink and then quickly said to the receptionist, "Oh, Yu Shaochuan just said something wrong. He wants to break through to the Profound Ascension stage. In fact, he is only at the peak of the Nascent Soul stage. He hasn't really been promoted to the Profound Ascension stage yet. In addition, the name of the person we asked to find in the Chamber of Commerce is Xiao Chen. You can also check it together." "Okay, then please wait a moment. I'll look for the relevant information." The receptionist didn't pay much attention to the strange behavior of the two. He nodded and walked to the cabinet on the side. He began to look for the information of the registered personnel in the bookcase. "Sister Tang, why didn't you let me tell the truth just now? I'm really at the second level of the Profound Ascension stage." Seeing the receptionist walked away, Yu Shaochuan lowered his voice and asked Tang Tang in surprise. Yu Shaochuan still trusted Tang Tang very much. He also knew that Tang Tang must have a reason for doing this, so he didn't refute on the spot, but just asked secretly. "Are you stupid? When we worked in this Chamber of Commerce before, your registered level was only at the first level of the Qi refining stage. It has only been a few months, and you have been promoted to the second level of the Profound Ascension stage. It would be strange if the people in the Chamber of Commerce didn't doubt it." Tang Tang rolled her eyes at Yu Shaochuan and said with disappointment. Chapter 1492. "Ah!" Yu Shaochuan exclaimed in a low voice and immediately covered her mouth with her hand. She asked with a surprised and aggrieved look, "No way? Just because my level is high they want to catch me and study me like a monster? I don't know about that. Anyway, it's definitely not wrong to be cautious. Tang Tang shook her head and said helplessly, I wanted to say a little lower, but I'm afraid that my strength is too low to do advanced tasks to earn spirit crystals, so I can only say that you are at the peak of nascent soul stage. Don't be exposed later. As soon as Tang Tang's voice fell, the receptionist came back with the information. He first looked at Yu Xiaochuan strangely, then stared at the information for a while and then asked, That? Yu Xiaochuan, right? Yes, it's me. Is there any problem, young man? Yu Xiaochuan was a little nervous. She simply bit her lower lip and winked at the receptionist. The receptionist couldn't help but shiver. He felt a chill and quickly withdrew his attention. He cleared his throat and said, Ahem, judging from the information, your strength has improved a little too fast, hasn't it? Are you deliberately falsifying your strength in order to get a well-paid job? High-level quests aren't something that just anyone can do. No, young man, you've misunderstood me. Yu Xiaochuan stamped her feet and immediately ran her cultivation method. She deliberately suppressed her strength to the peak of nascent soul stage, and then said in a sweet voice, If you don't believe me, you can see it with your own eyes. I do have the strength of the peak of nascent soul stage. Well, since you do have this kind of strength, I can help you arrange a more advanced job. The receptionist shivered again and quickly agreed, lest Yu Xiaochuan continued to act like a spoiled child. Thank you, young man. Have you found the whereabouts of Xiaochen Appa? We have registered with the Chamber of Commerce a long time ago. Yu Xiaochuan breathed a sigh of relief and immediately remembered another very important thing. The receptionist picked up another document and said as she flipped through it, I'm really sorry. The Chamber of Commerce has yet to find the whereabouts of the man named Xiaochen you're looking for. Do you still want to continue searching or are you prepared to give up? Of course, we must not give up. Yu Xiaochuan waved his fist with a resolute look on his face and instructed the receptionist, You must continue to increase your search efforts until you have news of Xiaochen Appa. I don't care how many spirit crystals you have to spend. Yu Xiaochuan had already paid a sum of spirit crystals to find Xiaochen. Naturally, he would not give up halfway. After all, working and cultivating were secondary. Finding Xiaochen was the most important thing. All right, we will definitely satisfy the customer's request. Since you have said so, our Chamber of Commerce will continue to send experts to search for Xiaochen's whereabouts. Once there is any news, we will inform you immediately. The receptionist nodded and carefully recorded Yu Xiaochuan's request. While the receptionist was recording, Yu Xiaochuan put his palms together and looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle. He secretly prayed, Xiaochen Appa, please be well, healthy and safe. Wait for me to find you. At this time, the receptionist had finished recording. When she looked up and saw Yu Xiaochuan's expression, she could not help but be stunned. She simply turned her head and asked Tang Tang, Madam Tang, is there any change in your current address? Yes, we are no longer staying at the previous address. We will be staying in Yaoxian Prefecture in the near future. The inn we are staying at is called. Tang Tang nodded and told the name of the inn she had just checked into in the morning. All right, I will write it down. After the receptionist finished recording the name of the inn, she asked again, Also, is your cultivation still at the Venerable Realm? Yes, I am still at the Venerable Realm. Is there any problem? Hearing the receptionist's question, Tang Tang felt a little uneasy. I'm really sorry, your strength is a little low. The receptionist looked at Tang Tang with a little regret and said honestly, At present, the Chamber of Commerce does have a high-level mission with good pay, but due to the limitation of strength, only Yu Xiaochuan can do it. If you also want to participate, I'm afraid there will be danger. What? Why is it so troublesome? I don't want to. Yu Xiaochuan was quite dissatisfied and pouted. He pulled Tang Tang and said, Sister Tang Tang must go with me. I'm not at ease leaving her alone in the inn. You go and ask the person who issued the mission if he can bring her along. If he can't, I won't go either. Yu Xiaochuan felt that he was also a master of the mysterious ascending stage. At worst, he would just have to do more work. In short, he must not leave Tang Tang behind. Otherwise, if he met Xiaochen Appa, how could he explain it to him? Well, the receptionist looked a little embarrassed. She looked down at the information for a while and then explained helplessly, Although the employer's mission did not explicitly state that you can't bring more people, but from the information this mission is very dangerous, so I don't recommend you to bring her along. Yu Xiaochuan was about to lose his temper, but Tang Tang suddenly thought of something. She pulled him and asked, I don't know if you can understand the specific content of this job? Oh, it's written on this information. The receptionist pointed to a line of the information and said, the content of this job is to refine some kind of poisonous medicinal materials. People with too low strength will faint from the poisonous gas produced during the refining of medicinal materials. In serious cases, it will even be fatal, so only people above the nascent soul stage are allowed to accept this job. So that's the case, then I can really go. Tang Tang immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and pointed to herself and said, I happen to be practicing a special mental cultivation method that can make myself immune to all kinds of poisons, so I am completely competent for this job. Even refining poison is not a problem. If Tang Tang was asked to do the work of fighting or killing for revenge, she really couldn't do it. If it was just refining medicine, it would be much easier. Sorry, our Chamber of Commerce can't bear the corresponding risks. The receptionist shook her head, looked at Tang Tang again and said faintly, besides, whether you really have this ability, the Chamber of Commerce can't verify it. Why don't you try other jobs? Although it's a little tiring, you can also earn enough spirit crystals to support your livelihood. The receptionist boasted that he was usually knowledgeable, but he had never heard of any mental cultivation method that could make poison immune. Naturally, he didn't believe what Tang Tang said. He only thought that she was trying to participate in this job because of the generous reward of the task. That was why she lied. Chapter 1493. Tang Tang hesitated for a while and seemed to have made up her mind. Then she said, Little brother, please listen to me first. In fact, I was born with such a physique. I had a serious illness when I was a child. Due to the urgent need of this job, Tang Tang simply described her physique problem and everything she had experienced in order to increase the credibility of her statement. After listening to Tang Tang's description, the receptionist believed that she was not lying. After a moment of silence, she said, Well then, I'll register you first and then send the description materials to the employer. As long as they agree, you can go for this job. Okay. Thank you very much. Tang Tang hurriedly thanked him. Yu Xiaochuan also smiled and said to the receptionist, That's right. He has such a high strength. Even if he brings a venerable, it will be a piece of cake. The receptionist's face was almost green. He forced a smile and handed the regular information form to Tang Tang. After she finished filling it, he immediately ran away from Yu Xiaochuan's side. The next thing to do was to wait. Tang Tang and Yu Xiaochuan left the Data Immortal Cultivator's Chamber of Commerce. It was the first time for both of them to come to Yaoxian County, so it was inevitable that they were a little curious about this place. So, they wandered on the street for a long time and walked in the direction of the inn until it was dark. After passing through a small alley, the inn was not far away. The two of them walked and walked. When they were about to pass through the alley, Yu Xiaochuan suddenly stopped and blocked Tang Tang behind him. He stared ahead with vigilance, and a haze flashed in his pupils. Yu Xiaochuan, what are you doing? Why don't you go? Tang Tang was a little puzzled at first. When she was halfway through her words, she heard footsteps coming from afar, and three figures suddenly came out of nowhere. One of them, a one-eyed middle-aged man with an eye patch on one eye, directly stood in front of them. The other two young bandits stood on both sides of Tang Tang, blocking the escape route of the alley. Hee little girl, you look pretty good. I like you. How about going back with us to have some fun? We can guarantee that we can make you want to die and you won't be able to stop. The one-eyed middle-aged man glanced at Tang Tang's breasts with his only eye. He licked his lips in an incomparably wretched manner and said with a croaky voice with an evil smile on his face. Boss, it's been a long time since we've met such a high-quality person. Looks like we can have some fun tonight. The tall bandit standing on Tang Tang's right kept rubbing his palms, looking a little impatient. What nonsense are you talking about? How could one night be enough to play with such a rare treasure? You have to work for at least a month. The short bandit gulped and stared at Tang Tang's exquisite figure with his triangular eyes. From time to time, a lustful light flashed in his eyes. Humph! If you don't want to die, get the hell out of here. Whoever dares to touch my little sister Tang Tang, I'll make him die without a whole corpse. Yu Xiaochuan had felt a sense of danger approaching before, so he suddenly stopped. At this time he finally understood that these bandits were coveting Tang Tang's beauty, so they followed them and wanted to take her away and rape her. But Yu Xiaochuan faintly felt a little strange. This was Yaoxian County. How could there be bandits? Haha, you're a hermaphrodite. Don't you know how to look in the mirror before going out? How dare you teach us a lesson? The one-eyed middle-aged man sneered and said in a strange voice, I'd like to see what ability you have to protect the little beauty behind you. As soon as the voice fell, the one-eyed middle-aged man's body began to surge with primordial chi. He instantly showed the cultivation of the first level of the profound ascension stage. Then he took out a cyan giant sword, jumped into the air with both legs, and fiercely slashed at Yu Shaochuan. The two bandits, one tall and one short, also operated their mental cultivation at the same time. They were both masters at the peak of the nascent soul stage. They didn't attack Yu Shaochuan, but flew to the position of Tang Tang. They wanted to take advantage of the opportunity when Yu Shaochuan had no time to care about his back and snatch the little girl. You're just at the first level of the profound ascension stage. Do you really think you're so great? Yu Shaochuan was not afraid of the one-eyed middle-aged man's attack. He sneered, and immediately his left foot gently stepped on the ground. His figure suddenly burst out, and faced the one-eyed giant's cyan sword head-on. Thick primordial chi quickly covered Yu Shaochuan's palms, and dyed his very sharp nails blood red as if the color of blood. It looked both beautiful and terrible, very eye-catching. Haha, I think you're the one who doesn't know death. My sword has never left anyone alive. Today I'll let you. Seeing that Yu Shaochuan was about to be chopped to death by the huge green sword, the one-eyed middle-aged man laughed arrogantly a few times and ridiculed with all his might. But before the one-eyed middle-aged man could be happy for long, he found that the moment before Yu Shaochuan touched the cyan giant sword, Yu Shaochuan's body suddenly moved strangely. The next moment, Yu Shaochuan disappeared in front of him without a trace. The one-eyed middle-aged man was slightly stunned, and a faint thought floated in his mind. This sissy doesn't look so easy to deal with. On the other side, because the two of them were more than enough to deal with Tang Tang, the short bandit did not go straight to her, but looked in the direction of the one-eyed middle-aged man as he walked. Seeing Yu Shaochuan charging head-on towards the green greatsword in a daze, the shorter bandit felt it was a little strange, so he kept an eye on him. When he saw Yu Shaochuan suddenly disappear, he was greatly alarmed and hurriedly shouted, "Boss, behind you!" What? The one-eyed middle-aged man didn't even have time to react when he felt a strong murderous aura behind him. His heart tightened, but he wasn't a vegetarian. He turned his wrist and brandished his cyan greatsword. Then he turned around and fiercely slashed behind him. You're too slow." Yu Shaochuan's indifferent voice sounded, only to see him lean down lightly, dodging the sweeping of the giant sword, then straightened up, with a charming orchid-shaped finger, casually brushed the cheek of the one-eyed middle-aged man, and then slowly landed on the ground from the air. The short bandit saw that Yu Shaochuan didn't seem to pose any threat to his boss, and just when he was relieved, something strange happened. "You're not a nascent soul." The one-eyed middle-aged man spat out the last few words with a twisted face. His mouth and nose suddenly dislocated, and his whole head seemed to be cut by a lancet, broken into several pieces of bone and flesh as thin as cicada wings. Chapter 1494. As the head was separated from the body, blood gushed out of the one-eyed middle-aged man's throat like a burst pipe. His whole body was like a pool of mud, falling heavily from the air to the ground. The only intact eyeball on his head rolled a few times and stopped at Yu Shaochuan's feet. Puchi. Yu Shaochuan lifted his foot slightly and directly crushed the eyeball on the ground. The corners of his bright red lips curled up slightly as he stared at the two bandits and said with a sinister smile, "Now that we've dealt with this, it's your turn next. But how many pieces do you want to be cut into? I will try my best to fulfill your wish." The tall bandit was about to grab Tang Tang's clothes, but he just happened to see the bloody scene of the one-eyed middle-aged man being beheaded in an instant. He suddenly trembled in fear and froze in place, not daring to move. A stinky liquid flowed down his pants, apparently he was scared to the point of peeing. Tang Tang immediately ran a few steps away from the tall and short bandits, covering her nose and frowning at them. "Don't just stand there like an idiot. Run. Are you waiting to be cut into pieces?" The short bandit was more clever and quickly recovered from the panic. He first looked at Tang Tang and estimated that it was too late to take her as a hostage, so he simply grabbed the tall bandit and turned to run. "Oh, even a profound ascending stage first level is not his opponent. Do you think you can run away?" Yu Shaochuan slowly shook the blood stains on his fingertips, looking very elegant. The tall and short bandit did not have time to answer, and ran forward desperately, wishing he had two more legs. At the end of the alley was the street with people coming and going. In their view, it was a chance to survive. Yu Shaochuan was not in a hurry, he shook off all the blood stains. At this time, the tall and short bandit had already run a distance. He arched his body, sneered a few times and suddenly rushed out like an arrow from the bow. His figure was like a cheetah rushing straight to the two bandits. After quickly approaching, his hands kept sweeping around their bodies. It seemed that he was fighting with the air. Although the movement was a bit funny, the tall and short bandit seemed to see the strangest thing in the world, and their expressions were extremely frightened. However, just as they opened their mouths, they did not even have time to scream. Under the sweep of Yu Shaochuan's blood-red fingertips, their bodies had been torn apart in an instant, the surrounding walls were dyed red, and the alley was filled with a strong smell of blood. Because Yu Shaochuan's speed was too fast, each move basically took less than a minute, and Tang Tang's own cultivation was too low, so she could not see Yu Shaochuan's movements at all. She only felt that the two bandits had disappeared in a flash, leaving only the blood stains on the wall and the ground. Tang Tang was a bit disgusted by the smell of blood, and the ground full of minced meat and bones was also quite disgusting. She suppressed the nausea and complained with a frown, "Yu Shaochuan, can you not make such a bloody mess every time? It's disgusting, isn't it? Fortunately, I haven't had dinner yet, or I will definitely vomit it all out." "I'm sorry, Sister Tang Tang." Yu Shaochuan finished dealing with the two bandits, took out a silk handkerchief from his arms, wiped the blood on his fingers and said with a helpless face, "This is the mental cultivation method they practice. I can't do anything about it. How about next time I'm going to kill someone, can you hide a little? Or I'll take them to another place and kill them again so you won't see them." Forget it. You didn't do it on purpose anyway." Tang Tang sighed and waved her hand casually. Apparently she had long been used to it. Looking at the headless corpse lying not far away, she muttered with some depression, "I just find it strange. How can there be bandits in this place? The public security in Yaoxian Prefecture is too bad. It's not even as good as those small towns we stayed in before." "That's right, it's too unsafe." Yu Shaochuan also pouted and snorted. While wiping his hands he said, "Besides, the strength of these bandits is really high. It seems that we have to be more careful during this time. Don't run around when it's dark. It's safer to stay in the inn and wait for the news." Feeling that he had almost wiped his hands, Yu Shaochuan threw away the silk handkerchief stained with blood and looked down to check his clothes. After confirming that there were no blood stains, he was relieved. The two walked out of the alley and returned to the inn. Tang Tang's mind was still lingering with the bloody scene just now. She had no appetite at all, so she went straight back to her room. Yu Shaochuan did not have much need for food, so he just ate something and went back to his room to cultivate. The next day the two had a discussion. Yu Shaochuan wanted to change to a safer place to live, but Tang Tang considered that they had registered the inn address at the Data Immortal Cultivator's Chamber of Commerce the day before. It seemed inappropriate to change immediately, so she thought to wait for another day. If no one came to find them, they would change to another place and then report it. Yu Shaochuan felt that Tang Tang's words were somewhat reasonable, so he agreed and told Tang Tang not to go anywhere today. It was better not to even go out of the room so that there should be no danger. The day passed peacefully. When night fell, Yu Shaochuan woke up from his cultivation. He sat in his room and pondered silently. Through what happened yesterday, Yu Shaochuan faintly felt that he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. In the world of cultivators, ordinary bandits who robbed people were already so powerful. If he encountered enemies from big sects like the inner martial arts world, it would be a small matter for him to suffer a little loss. If something happened to Tang Tang, he would really be too ashamed to face Xiao Chen. But then again, during this time, Yu Shaochuan had deeply realized that without the help of natural treasures, it was simply as difficult as climbing up to the sky if he wanted to improve his level. However, with the current spirit crystals in their hands, they were already short of food, clothing, housing, and transportation. There was no need to think about buying medicinal materials at all. After thinking about it, Yu Shaochuan felt that he still had to find a way to steal some from the sect or family. The most important thing was that he couldn't let Tang Tang find out. Otherwise, she would definitely scold him again since she didn't agree with it. After making up his mind, Yu Shaochuan simply did what he said. He planned to directly search in Yaoxian County at night. Whether there was any harvest or not, he would come back before dawn, so that he wouldn't disturb Tang Tang. After changing into night clothes, Yu Shaochuan quietly climbed out of the window. As soon as he took a step, a slight plop sound suddenly came from Tang Tang's room next to him. Chapter 1495. Although the movement was subtle, Yu Shaochuan still stopped vigilantly. He stepped to the window of Tang Tang's room and whispered, "Tang Tang?" Yu Shaochuan's call didn't get an immediate response from Tang Tang. He keenly felt that something was wrong, so he immediately opened her window and jumped in. With the faint moonlight coming in from the window, Yu Shaochuan suddenly saw that the bed was empty, and two black shadows were about to leave from the door of the room. One of them was carrying the unconscious Tang Tang on his shoulder. "Who are you? Put her down." Yu Shaochuan couldn't help but be shocked and angry. He wanted to rush to save her, but he was stopped by another black shadow who didn't carry anyone. "You were the one who killed my men, right?" The black shadow's voice was a little old, and his eyes looking at Yu Shaochuan were full of fierceness. "You even tore their bodies into pieces. I really didn't know that a guy who is neither a man nor a woman could be so ruthless. I don't care who you are, if you know what's good for you, quickly let go of Sister Tang Tang. Otherwise I will let you die more ugly than those bastards." Yu Shaochuan stared coldly at the two black shadows and said. The yuan qi in his body quickly surged and gradually gathered on his fingertips. The cultivation of the second level of the profound ascension stage was revealed. "It seems that I guessed right, you are really a master of the profound ascension stage." The black shadow in front of Yu Shaochuan sneered, and immediately raised his hand and made a simple gesture to his companion. The man nodded, immediately opened the door, and quickly stepped out with Tang Tang on his shoulder. His toes gently touched the ground, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the vast night. "Stop right there." Yu Shaochuan was burning with anxiety. Just as he was about to go around the shadow in front of him to catch up, he suddenly felt a scorching wave of air coming from the side. He quickly dodged to the side and barely avoided the frontal attack. However, his shoulder was still grazed by the air wave, and a burning pain immediately spread from the injured area. "Quite flexible. No wonder you were able to escape unscathed despite fighting against 3 of them alone, and even managed to kill them all." The black shadow snorted, his voice cold and emotionless. Without waiting for Yu Shaochuan to react, the black figure began chanting again. 3 different colored flames, red, purple, and blue, appeared around its body. The 3 flames gradually lit up the dark room. At the same time, Yu Shaochuan could clearly see the face of the person before him. The black-clothed man in front of him was an old man. However, his aged cheeks formed a sharp contrast with the light emitted from his eyes. His intuition told Yu Shaochuan that this guy's strength was definitely not ordinary, possibly much higher than his own. Otherwise he wouldn't have so easily come to his door and even dared to block him alone. "Kid, why don't you try this move again?" The old man moved his fingers slightly, and the red and purple flames immediately turned and fused into one. In an instant, a dazzling purple-red light burst out, and it flew towards Yu Shaochuan with a whoosh. Child's play. With the previous experience, Yu Shaochuan easily dodged the attack of the flames. Yu Shaochuan was worried about Tang Tang, who was taken away. He didn't want to delay time with this old man, so he decided to end the battle quickly. After dodging the flames, his figure moved slightly and disappeared into the air. The next moment he appeared behind the old man. His sharp nails drew 5 bright red lines and pierced the old man's heart from behind. "Oh, you're not using a magic instrument? Then I won't be polite." The old man seemed a little surprised. He quickly chanted a spell in his mouth, and the blue flame that stayed beside him suddenly soared and turned into a thick ice wall, standing straight behind him. Yu Shaochuan didn't expect the blue flame to have this kind of ability. Seeing that his fingertips were about to pierce the old man's heart, they were stuck in the ice wall. He wanted to pull them out but he couldn't. He was so anxious that his eyes turned red. At this moment, the purple-red fireball that Yu Shaochuan had dodged before circled around and flew back. "The game is over. I don't want to play with you anymore. Go to the underworld to accompany my 3 poor disciples," the old man said coldly as he stretched out his fingers to control the huge purple-red fireball. He quickly smashed it toward Yu Shaochuan. Boom! Before Yu Shaochuan could pull his fingers out of the ice wall, the purple-red fireball had already exploded on his body, instantly turning him into a flaming man. However, the flame only burned for a moment. Soon, a strange energy emerged from Yu Shaochuan's body, extinguishing and absorbing all the flames on his skin. Even though it was just a burn, Yu Shaochuan still suffered serious internal injuries. His whole body directly collapsed, curled up on the ground, trembling constantly, and spitting out mouthfuls of blood. "Oh, your mental cultivation method seems a bit weird." It was the first time for the old man to see such a situation. He felt a little surprised. He stared at Yu Shaochuan, who was vomiting blood, for a while. Then, he suppressed the curiosity in his heart and slowly walked out of the room. He whispered softly, "Forget it. Anyway, you won't live long. I won't waste time on you." After saying that, the old man was already standing outside the room. He turned his head again to confirm Yu Shaochuan's injury. He felt that this sissy could not hold on for more than 30 minutes. He shook his head slightly, flashed his body, and left the inn to follow his former companion. As soon as the old man's figure disappeared, Yu Shaochuan no longer trembled and vomited blood. He opened his eyes, gritted his teeth and struggled to get up. Yu Shaochuan wanted to rush out of the door directly, but when he looked down, he found that his clothes had been burned by the flame. There were only strips of cloth left, which could not cover his body at all. In a hurry, he simply grabbed Tang Tang's coat and put it on. Then he walked out of the door. As he walked, he sped up the mental cultivation method and quickly spread out his divine sense. After confirming the direction of the black-clothed old man's escape, he jumped and chased after him. In fact, the old man did not know that Yu Shaochuan was indeed seriously injured, but the chrysanthemum text mental cultivation method he practiced was very powerful. Not only could it extinguish the flame that destroyed the skin tissue, but it could also absorb the flame and turn it into his own energy. That was why he could bear the injury and follow the old man closely. Because he did not think that Yu Shaochuan could survive, the old man did not care about his back at all. Instead, he chased his companion with all his strength. In addition, the strength gap between the two sides was not too big, and Yu Shaochuan was very good at hiding, so he followed all the way without being discovered. Chapter 1496. After running out of Yaoxian County, Yu Shaochuan suddenly felt that he was shrouded by a strange aura. Although the aura only flashed by and then disappeared, he could feel that this aura was very strange. It wasn't emitted by the black-clothed old man in front of him. Yu Shaochuan immediately stopped in his tracks and looked around vigilantly. However, he did not find any traces of strangers at all. In the time it took for him to stop, the old man in front of him had almost disappeared. Yu Shaochuan had no choice but to stop searching and continue to chase after the old man. "Senior brother, did that guy in women's clothing notice us?" Not far behind Yu Shaochuan, two blue-robed men were shuttling through the woods at an extremely fast speed. One of the men who looked younger asked in a low voice. "Yes, maybe I was anxious just now and released too much aura. It seems that I still have to restrain myself and not be noticed by people with ulterior motives." The other man with a flat top, who was a few years older, nodded slightly and said with a solemn expression. When the flat-top man had just extended his divine sense to Yu Shaochuan, he saw Yu Shaochuan's body tremble and stop and turn his head to look. The flat-top man immediately reduced the range of his divine sense a little, for fear of being discovered by the sissy in women's clothing. "Alas, I didn't expect that group of guys to beat us to it." The young man sighed heavily and said with a depressed expression, "If we had known this, we wouldn't have waited for the sky to turn dark. We could have directly explained the reason to that girl surnamed Tang during the day. Maybe she would have taken the initiative to agree after we offered enough compensation." "Forget it. Although our Huanshan Pavilion is still considered prominent in the cultivation world and occupies a top position, the old guys in front of us also have a very strong background. We don't need to become enemies with them for the time being." Although the flat-top man was also very aggrieved, he was relatively rational. "What should we do now? Are we just going to follow them like this? Our strength is not that high. We can't snatch them back even if we follow them," the young man asked. The crew-cut man strode forward and said, "Let's follow them and see where their nest is. Then we'll report the situation to the sect leader and wait for further instructions." After chasing for a day and a night, the two of them finally followed Yu Shaochuan to an unknown, desolate suburb. There was a towering black building erected here, which looked very out of place in the desolate suburb. The two brothers watched Tang Tang being taken in by the black-robed man, but they felt completely helpless. After a discussion, they simply let the flat-top man stay and continue to monitor, while the young man took the voice-transmitting charm and looked for water, ready to contact the head of his sect. Yu Shaochuan also followed the man in black. He watched Tang Tang being taken in, but he did not dare to act rashly to save her. On the one hand, Yu Shaochuan's injury had not fully healed. On the other hand, he had circled around the black building, only to find that the defense of this place was very tight. There was only one gate in front, and the other places were very tightly guarded. He studied it for a long time, but he did not know how to sneak in without being discovered. In desperation, Yu Shaochuan could only lie in ambush behind a big tree, staring at the gate of the building, waiting for the people inside to come out. You Xiaochuan plan to wait for someone to come out, first catch a small fry to ask about the situation, and then make the next rescue plan. In one of the dark rooms in the black building, Cheng Minjing was sitting on the bed, cultivating with her eyes closed. Although her hands and feet were bound by the rope magic artifact, causing her strength to be suppressed, it was not a problem for her to cultivate normally. It was just that without Xiao Chen by her side to assist her in dual cultivation, her progress was much slower than before. It was better than nothing. Creak! Just as Cheng Minjing was immersed in her cultivation, the door was suddenly opened. Cheng Minjing jumped in fright and quickly withdrew her yuan qi. She suddenly opened her eyes and saw a black-clothed man carrying a woman with disheveled hair walking in. Then he casually threw the woman on the ground. He didn't even look at Cheng Minjing. Without saying anything, he turned around and left, closing the door with a pang sound. Hey, what did you do to Nie Xiaoyu? Why isn't she moving? Cheng Minjing thought that Nie Xiaoyu had been sent back. Seeing her like this, she immediately shouted, but the door was still closed and no one paid attention to her at all. Cheng Minjing was a little helpless. She was tied up by the instrument and couldn't move, but she still jumped out of the bed with difficulty. She moved to the woman lying on the ground, gently touched her with her feet and shouted, "Xiaoyu, are you okay? Are you okay? Hurry up and say something. Don't scare me, okay?" She finally woke up and rubbed her head with difficulty, feeling that her head was about to split open. Just as she was wondering why she had suddenly fallen off the bed, a familiar female voice suddenly rang in her ears. She looked up with a little confusion and saw Cheng Minjing standing in front of her in a daze. She couldn't help but blink and whisper, "Cheng Minjing? Am I dreaming? Where am I? Tang Tang? Is it really you? How did you get caught by them?" Cheng Minjing couldn't help but be shocked when she saw the girl's raised face. She blurted out in surprise. At this moment, Cheng Minjing's imagination had already begun to run wild. Could it be that the young master had captured all of Xiao Chen's companions to force him to do something? Or was there some other conspiracy to make him submit? What the hell was going on? Are you real? I'm not dreaming, right? The more Tang Tang listened, the more she felt something was wrong. She quickly got up from the ground and looked at Cheng Minjing. She subconsciously reached out her hand to touch her cheek and found that it was warm. Then she realized that she was not dreaming. "Tang Tang, I'm real. Why were you also caught?" Cheng Minjing saw Tang Tang's silly behavior and almost cried. She asked again. Tang Tang looked down and found that Cheng Minjing was still tied up. She quickly began to untie her and said, "I was going to sleep in the inn, and you Xiaochuan also lived next to me. Then I don't know what happened, but I fainted inexplicably. When I woke up, I found myself here. I don't know who caught me." Chapter 1497. Tang Tang struggled for a long time, but she still couldn't untie the rope. Cheng Minjing shook her head helplessly and said, "You don't have to try. This is a magic instrument in the cultivation world. It can suppress the strength of cultivators, and only the caster can untie it. You'd better, bang." Before Cheng Minjing could finish her words, the door of the room was suddenly opened again. The black-clothed man strode in again and knocked Tang Tang out with a hand knife. Then he quickly carried her on his shoulder and took her away. It was not until the door was slammed that Cheng Minjing came to her senses. She was so angry that blood rushed to her head. She ran over and kicked the door. Originally, Cheng Minjing lost her balance when she was tied up. After the kick, she fell to the ground. But she still shouted at the door, "You bastards! What do you mean? First you took Nie Xiaoyu away and now you took Tang Tang away. Every time you don't let us finish talking, why did you bring them here? What a group of strange guys." If it weren't for the fact that she had been ignored after being thrown into the woodshed, Cheng Minjing would have thought that this group of people was specifically targeting her. If they really deliberately caught someone she knew to meet and then quickly took her away, then this group of people was too boring. The black-clothed man who had just walked out of the door naturally heard Cheng Minjing's cursing, but he didn't take it seriously. Instead, he quickly walked to the door of the yard with Tang Tang on his back. A black shadow stood at the door of the yard. It was the young master who passed by here. It turned out that when the black-clothed man brought Tang Tang here, he casually threw her into Cheng Minjing's room. When he came out of the room, he didn't go far before he met the young master who happened to pass by. Seeing that the black-clothed man was in a hurry, the young master asked casually, Then he reported the situation in detail and said that he was going to tell the first master and the second master about it. However, before the black-clothed man finished speaking, the young master's face changed. After repeatedly confirming that the captured woman's name was Tang Tang, he immediately ordered the black-clothed man to take Tang Tang out again and lock her up in another place. Naturally, the black-clothed man didn't understand the young master's action, but the young master didn't explain to him. He only ordered the black-clothed man to take Tang Tang away immediately and not lock her up with Cheng Menjing. Although it was strange, the black-clothed man didn't dare to disobey the young master's order. He had to go back and knock Tang out again. He had to take her out again, which made Cheng Menjing curse him. The young master still seemed to be worried, so he walked to the gate of the yard and waited. The man in black didn't know where to send Tang Tang. In order to avoid making any more mistakes, he simply walked to the young master and asked, "Young master, I've brought her here. Where do you think it's appropriate to lock her up?" The young master stared at the unconscious Tang Tang on the black-clothed man's shoulder for a while. It seemed that he was confirming her appearance. After a while, he ordered, "Just hand her over to the second master directly. This girl is very important to us. The second master knows what to do." After that, the young master glanced at Tang Tang again with a cold light flashing in his eyes. The corner of his mouth raised a strange arc. Then he turned around and walked to his room. The black-clothed man lowered his head and didn't see the young master's expression. After hearing the young master's words, he didn't dare to neglect and immediately carried Tang Tang to the study of the second master. Fortunately, Tang Tang was relatively light and didn't weigh much, so the black-clothed man quickly came to the study of the second master. The second master hadn't slept yet. He sat in the study and looked through the recent account books. The black-clothed man knocked on the door and took Tang Tang in. Then he briefly reported the situation and specifically mentioned that the young master just said that this woman was very important. Well? The second master stared at Tang Tang, who was lying on the ground. After pondering for a while, he nodded and said, "I see. You can leave after waking her up. I will interrogate her." "Yes, I will." The black-clothed man immediately bent down and pressed on the back of Tang Tang's neck. After she woke up, he saluted and left. The second master leaned on the back of the chair and watched Tang Tang, who was recovering. He could vaguely guess that this little girl was probably the person targeted by Huan Chenxian. He didn't expect that his subordinate would snatch the opportunity. Huan Chenxian must be beating his chest and stamping his feet in regret now. However, the second master didn't intend to go straight to the point. He wanted to interrogate her first to see if he could learn from the special features of this little girl. After all, there was only one living dead, Nie Xiaoyu. If this living dead could be mass-produced, then the chance to go to that place would be a bit higher. "It hurts." After Tang Tang woke up, she touched her neck first and felt a soreness. She couldn't help but feel depressed. In just one night, she had been knocked out twice in a row. In fact, Tang Tang didn't know that a whole day had passed since she was knocked out and brought here. "Are you going to talk to me like this or get up and sit on the chair?" A slightly old voice came from above Tang Tang. Tang Tang's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and found that she was in a study at this time. Behind the big table in front of her sat an old man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Obviously, he was the one who spoke just now. Although she didn't know who the person in front of her was, Tang Tang really didn't want to continue to lie on the ground. So, she stood up with difficulty, shook her head, and casually found a seat to sit down. "Little girl, I heard that because your physique is different from ordinary people, you have practiced a very strange mental cultivation method that can make you immune to all kinds of poisons, right?" The second master knocked on the table and asked faintly. "Why should I tell you?" Tang Tang looked very vigilant. She looked around and didn't find Yu Shaochuan's figure. She blurted out, "Where's Yu Shaochuan? What did you do to him?" "Who's Yu Shaochuan? Never heard of him." The second master raised his eyebrows and asked with interest, "Is he also a guy who is immune to all kinds of poisons?" "No, I'm just asking casually." Tang Tang immediately shook her head and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Since the old man in front of her didn't know Yu Shaochuan, it meant that he should still be safe in the inn. Maybe he would come to save her tomorrow. At this time, Tang Tang had gradually woken up. She suddenly recalled the scene when she was thrown into a woodshed and saw Cheng Menjing. She couldn't help but stand up, stared at the second master and shouted, "Who the hell are you? Why did you catch me and Cheng Menjing here?" Chapter 1498. Don't be impatient. Don't be impatient. The second headmaster didn't answer immediately, but slowly pressed his palm, signaling Tang Tang to relax. Although the anger in Tang Tang's heart was like a pot of boiling oil at this time, she was kidnapped and the situation was beyond her control. She could only grit her teeth and slowly sit back. The second leader nodded his head in satisfaction. With a leisurely expression, he replied, "We are a powerful and mysterious organization. As for our name, there is no need for you to know. As for Lady Qing Menjing, she is a distinguished guest invited by our young leader. However, from now on, her life is in your hands." "What do you mean by that?" Tang Tang frowned and keenly sensed something unusual. She warned first, "If you dare to do anything to Qing Menjing, Xiao Chen will not let you go easily." I'm afraid it's not up to you to decide this matter." The second headmaster looked at Tang Tang with a faint smile. He crossed his legs and said, "I'm not interested in whether Xiao Chen will let us go or not. The only thing I'm interested in now is the mental cultivation method you're practicing. You haven't answered the question I asked you just now, have you?" "My mental cultivation method is useless to you. It's meaningless even if you know it." Tang Tang's expression changed for a while and then she tried to defend herself. "You don't need to worry about it. As long as you tell me honestly what mental cultivation method you're practicing, I promise I won't let you suffer losses. How about it?" Seeing that Tang Tang still refused to tell him, the second headmaster was a little impatient. He coldly snorted and said, "Let's solve this first before we can talk about Qing Menjing. Don't you want to know what will happen to her next?" Tang Tang gnashed her teeth when she heard the second headmaster's implied threat, but she couldn't do anything to this old man. In desperation, she had to take out the 5 Poison secret book from her arms and threw it on the table. She said angrily, "I usually practice this 5 Poison secret book. Take it if you like it. But don't blame me for reminding you that unless you have a physique like mine, you will die after practicing it." Tang Tang had already memorized the 5 Poison secret book, so it didn't matter even if it was confiscated by the second headmaster. She just wanted to save Qing Menjing, so it was not a big deal to take out a secret book. "That's right." The second headmaster laughed and picked up the 5 Poison secret book on the table to read it carefully. Second master read very fast, but he still turned over every page. When he finished, he threw it back to Tang Tang and said lightly, "Sure enough, only people born with a poisonous body can practice it. It seems that you have some value." At this moment, the second leader was a little upset. He thought that he could learn from Tang Tang's method this time and create a daredevil team that was also not afraid of the poisonous gas. Unexpectedly, it was another unique existence. It seemed that he could only trick Tang Tang into going to that place as he did to Nye Xiaoyu. Tang T, why did he give it back to me after reading it once? Is it because they don't have people who are born with poison, so this secret book is useless to them? But I still don't understand. Before Tang Tang could figure it out, the second headmaster pinched his chin and said, "If you practice according to this secret book, plus you are born immune to all poisons, your cultivation should be higher than this. But you are only at the venerable realm. What's going on? Is there anything else you haven't explained clearly? What's so hard to understand?" Tang Tang rolled her eyes and said angrily, "Didn't you read the secret book just now? The 5 Poison secret book is divided into 2 parts. I have only practiced the first half. I need to take medicine to practice the second half. But I can't get any of those medicinal materials, so my strength is stagnant." After coming to the cultivation world, Tang Tang found that the mysterious medicinal materials mentioned in the second half of the 5 Poison secret book could be found here. But they were all very rare or expensive. She had tried to buy them in a pharmacy, but they were too expensive for her to afford, or the stores didn't have any stock at all. "I see. Then it's easy." The second in charge looked at Tang Tang with a smile and urged her in a tempting tone, "What our organization lacks the least is the treasures of heaven and earth. I can help you gather all the medicinal materials you need in your secret manual, so that you can practice your strength to the highest level. What do you think? You must be hiding evil intentions if you are unaccountably solicitous." Tang Tang was not tempted. Instead, she looked at the second headmaster with vigilance and said, "How can you be so kind? There must be some conditions." "Oh, you are so smart. Of course I can't hide it from you." The second headmaster did not deny it and replied slowly, "We can help you improve your strength to the peak. Then, in exchange, you must help me do one thing after you successfully advance. If you can do it, you will definitely benefit from it." "What is it?" The more Tang Tang listened, the more mysterious she felt. Why is this old man so kind? Doesn't he understand the principle of nurturing a tiger only to bring calamity? Or does he have some confidence that he can control me? You will naturally know it when the time comes. The second headmaster thought for a moment and deliberately added, but you can rest assured that it will not ask you to commit murder or arson, nor will it ask you to cheat or do anything against morality. Really? Tang Tang still did not believe the words of the second headmaster. She looked at him with a little suspicion and said, "The medicinal materials mentioned in my secret book are very precious natural treasures. They can't be bought in ordinary pharmacies. They are all priceless treasures. Are you sure you can find them all?" "Haha, don't look down on our organization." The second headmaster looked up to the sky and laughed. He stood up with his hands behind his back and walked to the front of Tang Tang. He pointed at the secret book in her hand and said, "But I can tell you in advance that the natural treasures listed in your 5 poisons secret book are all top poisons that will kill you instantly upon contact. If you can't bear it and die after eating them, our organization will not be responsible for it." Just now, when the second leader was flipping through the 5 poisons manual, he had already noticed that the medicinal herbs needed for cultivation in the latter half of the manual were not only extremely expensive, but also incomparably toxic. Not to mention eating a little bit of it, there were even some that would be poisoned to death just by smelling it. Chapter 1499. It was because of the horror of the 5 poisons that the second headkeeper gave up the idea of letting his people practice it. If it were not for the people who were born with a poisonous body, they would not be able to bear the risk of practicing it. It was estimated that they would have been killed before they could master their skills. What? All of them are poisons? Tang Tang was also taken aback. No one had told her about this before. Tang Tang changed her mind and immediately shook her head, saying, "Forget it. I have no interest in becoming a peerless master. You'd better lock me up." In fact, from the bottom of Tang Tang's heart, she was indeed eager to improve her strength. But this matter was too dangerous. Unless there was Xiao Qin to help protect her, she would never risk her life by poisoning herself to upgrade. Don't be so hasty to refuse. I think you can give it a try. After all, if you successfully practice the 5 poisons secret manual, it will be good for both you and me, won't it? Speaking of this, the second headkeeper showed a despicable smile. He proudly raised his eyebrows and added, "Besides, even if you don't think for yourself, you have to consider the safety of Cheng Menjing. You are too despicable. How dare you threaten me with Cheng Menjing? Aren't you afraid?" Tang Tang was so angry that her eyes were full of fire. She wanted to directly slap the old man in front of her to death. This man was so hateful. He always picked other people's weak spots and stabbed them with a knife. "Aha, little girl, you are really naive." Before Tang Tang could finish her protest, the second headkeeper laughed unscrupulously and said, "First, are you still counting on that Xiao Qin to save you? Who knew which corner of the world he was wandering around in right now? Don't daydream. You are the one who is daydreaming. Xiao Qin will definitely come to save us." Tang Tang stared at the second headkeeper and said word by word, "You'd better not refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." Seeing that Tang Tang still refused to give in, the second master's face turned cold. He said in a very understated tone, "If you refuse to do it, then before Xiao Qin comes here, I'll ask someone to rape and kill Cheng Menjing first. Then I'll find dozens of strong men to play with you in turns. At that time you'll definitely want to die." Tang Tang gritted her teeth when she heard the shameless threat from the second in charge. But she also knew that now that she and Cheng Menjing had fallen into the hands of the enemy, it was not the time to act on impulse. Otherwise, even if the enemy could not kill her, he would have many ways to torture them. After a moment of silence, Tang Tang suppressed her anger and coldly said, "Fine. I can promise you, but after this is done, you must abide by the agreement and let me and Cheng Menjing leave this place in one piece." "Of course, no problem. If you had promised me earlier, there wouldn't be so many problems." The second master's expression immediately turned from cloudy to sunny. He became a smiling old man again and kindly said, "Then you should have a good rest tonight. When you're full of energy, you'll have the strength to practice tomorrow." Ah. As soon as he finished speaking, the second master clapped his hands. Soon, one of his men came in and took Tang Tang to another room to rest, while he hurried to the pharmacy, ready to start collecting the natural treasures mentioned in the secret book of 5 poisons. In fact, the second master was also a little lucky. When Xiaoyu was trying to reach the peak of nascent soul stage, She had used up all the elixirs that could increase her cultivation. Now she was short of them. Fortunately, all the medicinal materials that Tang Tang needed were poisons which happened to be available. Early the next morning, under the supervision of the second master, Tang Tang began to take the poison and prepared to practice. The person who boiled the medicine for Tang Tang was appointed by the second master himself, and he specially put on a poison-resistant mask. After Tang Tang drank all the poison, the remaining dregs were thrown out by the person who boiled the medicine. Anyway, they were in the wilderness, so they didn't worry that someone would pick them up. They just needed to make sure that the people inside didn't accidentally touch the poison. In addition to the person who was responsible for boiling the medicine, there were even maids who served Tang Tang's daily life and took care of her meticulously. However, whenever Tang Tang proposed to let Qing Minjing out first, those people would turn a deaf ear to her. As time went by, Tang Tang had to give up reluctantly. All this was specially arranged by the second master. After all, after losing Ye Xiaoyu, it was rare to find a suitable candidate to enter the secret realm to collect medicinal materials. Of course, he would not let it go easily. He not only had to ensure that Tang Tang's strength improved rapidly, but also to ensure that there would be no accidents during her practice. Otherwise, if the first master and the young master blamed him, he wouldn't be able to afford it. Yu Shaochuan stayed near the black building for a few days, healing himself while observing carefully. After watching for a while, he found that there seemed to be few people coming in and out of the place. Except for the strict guards on the wall, there were no guards patrolling around. Even if one or two people occasionally came out, they were all masters at the 5th or 6th level of the profound ascension stage. As soon as they went out of the door, they immediately used their movement skills and disappeared quickly. Yu Shaochuan couldn't catch them even if he wanted to. At first, Yu Shaochuan was a little anxious and kept circling around the building. But from the second day onwards, he found that a bag of things would be thrown out from the back wall of the building every day. It was just thrown on the side of the road casually and no one cared about it. It looked very strange. At first, Yu Shaochuan didn't dare to make a move. Later he found that the same thing was thrown out for several days in a row. He couldn't help but be curious, so he took advantage of a moonless night to carefully sneak over and steal a few bags. Bringing the small bag back to the tree where he was hiding, Yu Shaochuan randomly picked one and opened it. He didn't expect the stench to hit his nose. After taking a closer look, he found that the bag was filled with dregs of medicine. Opening the rest of the bags, Yu Shaochuan found that it was full of dregs that looked exactly the same, even the stench was similar. Although he didn't know what these dregs were and he didn't know what they were for, Yu Shaochuan hadn't eaten for a few days. In addition, his injury was healing slowly, so he didn't care so much at this time. He simply ate all the dregs in one breath. Anyway, the chrysanthemum treasure book could absorb anything, even the dregs had the same effect. Ugh. The young man hiding not far behind Yu Shaochuan saw this scene and suddenly felt sick. He said to the man with a flat top next to him with a bitter face, "Senior brother, that person's brain is definitely not normal. He would even pick up the garbage thrown by others and eat it. It's too abnormal. Let's stay away from him. God knows what other unimaginable things he will do." Chapter 1500. Well, let's find another place to monitor. Wait, what's going on? The flat-top man nodded and was about to leave. Suddenly, he felt a fluctuation of aura coming from Yu Shaochuan's direction. He turned his head in that direction in surprise. After eating the dregs, Yu Shaochuan sat cross-legged on the tree and began to cultivate steadily. Judging from the fluctuation of aura, this guy seemed to be about to break through. The young man also noticed the abnormality at this time. He was very surprised and blurted out, Senior brother, look. That psycho can actually cultivate by eating garbage. His mental cultivation method is so weird. W. Originally, the young man wanted to say that they should stay and observe, but when he thought of the scene of Yu Shaochuan eating garbage, his stomach kept churning. The more he thought about it, the more he couldn't hold it. Alas, the cultivation world is really full of strange things. The flat-top man sighed softly. He immediately pushed his junior brother and said calmly, "Don't look at it. If his strength continues to break through, it is very likely that he will find our hiding place. Now it's not convenient for us to expose our identity directly. Let's go." "Okay, senior brother, I'll listen to you." The young man nodded quickly, resisted the feeling of nausea, and followed the flat-top man to the distance. This time they came out to carry out a secret task of the sect. Although they had the backing of Huanshan Pavilion, they still had to be careful, lest they leave any gossip and make trouble for the sect. In the following days, Yu Shaochuan seemed to have found a new way of cultivation. Every day he picked up the dregs that were thrown out of the black building and ate all of them to assist his cultivation. In just a few days Yu Shaochuan's injury was completely healed, and his strength was constantly rising. There were new breakthroughs almost every day. He had been completely immersed in it and enjoyed it. Originally, Yu Shaochuan wanted to find a place to steal medicinal materials to complement his cultivation. He didn't expect that the medicinal materials here were so easy to get. Moreover, judging from the absorption of the chrysanthemum book, the effect of these dregs was extremely powerful, which meant that the original medicinal materials were extremely precious. If it weren't for Tang Tang's safety, Yu Shaochuan would like to live here and guard the back wall of the black building every day, waiting for people to feed him the dregs. Senior brother Wu Gang, why do I feel that fellow seems to be stronger than before? I can't even tell which stage he has broken through to. Although he was already very far away from Yu Shaochuan, the young man could still feel the oppressive feeling coming from Yu Shaochuan's direction. He was a little scared. You're right. Wu Gang's expression was also somewhat solemn as he stared at Yu Shaochuan and said, "This fellow is indeed a bit strange. He can advance just by eating that trash, and he even broke through repeatedly. I've never heard of such a person in the immortal cultivation world." The young man asked in a trembling voice, "Senior Martial Brother Wu Gang, should we report this matter to the sect leader first? I feel that if we don't get rid of him soon, this sissy will become a scourge sooner or later." "Forget it, Junior Martial Brother Do Ling. With his current strength, I'm afraid it's not something we can deal with." Wu Gang shook his head and helplessly rejected Do Ling's suggestion. At first, Wu Gang looked down on Yu Shaochuan. He felt that it was a bit vulgar for this fellow to dress up as a woman and eat trash. But now that he couldn't even tell Yu Shaochuan's strength, there was no way he could kill him. Moreover, Yu Shaochuan didn't offend him. He couldn't possibly let the sect send an expert to deal with him just because his cultivation method was a bit strange and he had a faster breakthrough, right? That would be too inappropriate. No way? Could it be that his strength is already above yours? Do Ling was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth when he heard Wu Gang's words. But looking at Wu Gang's helpless expression, it didn't seem like he was joking. That guy who was neither a man nor a woman had obviously broken through to a higher realm. Wu Gang sighed and was about to reply when he suddenly saw Tang Tang coming out of the black building with a group of people from the corner of his eye. He immediately lowered his body and whispered, "Let's not take the initiative to provoke that person for the time being. That Tang chick has come out. Get ready to follow her." Do Ling was young, but his ability to adapt was not bad. He immediately lowered his body and peeked through the gaps in the forest. Indeed, he saw a group of people coming out of the building and walking further and further away. Do Ling couldn't hide his curiosity and shock towards Yu Shaochuan. But he also understood that the key to this mission was to find Tang Tang. As for the other matters, it was better to leave it to the sect. From Do Ling's point of view, as long as Yu Shaochuan didn't have any conflict with Huanshan Pavilion, they wouldn't have a chance to meet again. So there was no need to keep an eye on Yu Shaochuan. At this moment, Yu Shaochuan's entire body was enveloped in a thick layer of Yuan Qi. Actually, he did not know which cultivation realm he had advanced to, but he could already clearly sense the movements within a few miles of him with his divine sense. Yu Shaochuan could even hear the conversation between Wu Gang and Do Ling, Tang Tang being escorted out of the black building by a few experts and walking towards another path. He could even hear a group of ants crawling on the ground. Although he could hear the two guys from Huanshan Pavilion talking about him, Yu Shaochuan didn't plan to look for trouble with them because he didn't want to expose himself. He was only thinking about how to rescue Tang Tang and escape successfully. Everything else wasn't within the scope of his consideration. The people who brought Tang Tang out of the black building were the second and young master, as well as some stronger followers. The first master was not among them. He stayed in the base camp and waited for the news from the front lines. After a period of sleepless continuous cultivation, Tang Tang's strength had successfully jumped from the Qi refining stage to the first level of the profound ascension stage. Although she almost went mad several times in the process, she still relied on her strong willpower to pull through. This time, Tang Tang made a successful breakthrough without any mistakes like Nye Xiaoyu last time, which led to the final failure, which made the second chief very proud. Therefore, he hurried to present the treasure to the first chief. After being praised, he was ready to take her to the valley where Nye Xiaoyu had been last time. Chapter 1501. As the silver radiance shone again, Yu Shaochuan's vision blurred and he was teleported in. Yu Shaochuan was shocked, but he didn't dare to act rashly. He waited until the two leaders of the group talked for a while and then walked towards the other side of the forest before he tiptoed over. Helplessly, the two of them could only follow Yu Shaochuan from afar. After all, following him meant that they were following Tang Tang. The only thing they had to pray for was that Yu Shaochuan would not suddenly attack them. Otherwise, they would have to give up on the mission and escape with all their might. From the perspective of Yu Shaochuan, who was hiding not far away, the group of people stopped when they came here. An old man with thick eyebrows and heavy eyes came out and pointed at the transmitting matrix and said something to Tang Tang for a while, as if he was telling her something. I think that sissy must be suicidal. How dare he go to the Devil Valley alone to save someone? He must be crazy. Dou Ling pouted and frowned. Senior brother, what should we do next? Looking at the endless wilderness and the dark woods, Yu Shaochuan sighed slightly. It seemed that he had to search all the way through this huge valley to find Tang Tang. Now that the bandit project was at a standstill and the young master had nothing to do in the branch, the big master did not stop him after he made this request and allowed him to set off with Tang Tang. Behind a huge rock, Wu Gang and Dou Ling watched as Yu Shaochuan disappeared into the teleportation formation. Dou Ling asked in surprise, Senior brother Wu Gang, this teleportation formation should be the entrance to the Green Devil Valley, right? Yu Shaochuan took out a piece of spirit crystal from his pocket and carefully inserted it into the groove in front of him according to the old man's method, just to give it a try. After studying the teleportation formation for a long time, Yu Shaochuan could not figure out the principle behind it. He only knew that those people seemed to have done something to activate the formation. He frowned and thought for a while. His gaze fell on the spiritual crystal embedded on the side of the formation. The group moved quickly and Tang Tang was brought to the side of the teleportation formation that Nie Xiaoyu had come to before in the evening. Aren't these people too rich? They didn't even take away all the spiritual crystals? Yu Shaochuan muttered and snorted, it's best that they didn't take it away. It's all mine anyway. Shaochuan Appa, wait for me to save Tang Tang and I'll come for you. Could it be that this transmitting formation is also randomly teleported, just like how it was when we were teleported from the internal martial arts world to the world of cultivators? Yu Shaochuan muttered to himself as if he had realized something. Yu Shaochuan stared at this scene without blinking. After the spirit crystal was embedded into the array, the entire array began to emit a faint silvery white light. Yu Shaochuan had no time to enjoy the scenery. He wandered around for a while but he couldn't find Tang Tang who had just come in. The old man waved at Tang. Tang looked a little uneasy, but she still took a deep breath and walked into the center of the formation. Yo. Feeling puzzled, Yu Shaochuan returned to the place where he had just been teleported. He lowered his head and checked carefully, only to find that there were only his footprints on the ground. There were no traces of others. Thinking of this, Yu Shaochuan no longer stayed where he was and began to explore the valley. Fortunately, after walking for a while, he was surprised to find that there were treasures everywhere in this place. Not only were there a lot of them but they were also extremely rare species. However, they grew as lush as weeds here. Thinking up to here, Yu Shaochuan no longer stayed in the same place and started to explore the valley. Fortunately, after walking for a while, he was pleasantly surprised to find that there were treasures of heaven and earth growing everywhere in this place. Not only were there a lot of them but they were also of extremely rare species. But here they grew lush like weeds. Now that the girl surnamed Tang has entered the Green Demonic Valley, there's nothing we can do. Wu Gang pondered for a while and said, as far as I know, there should be a small town nearby. Let's stay there first and then contact the sect leader to report the situation here. After that, we can make plans. Now that the chick surnamed Tang has entered the Green Demonic Valley, there's nothing we can do. Wu Gang pondered for a while and said, as far as I know, there should be a small town nearby. Let's stay there first and then contact the sect leader to report the situation here. After that, we can make plans. Before Yu Shaochuan could jump out, the light of the formation suddenly surged, and the silver-white light completely wrapped Tang Tang's body. Then Tang Tang disappeared in the air in a flash. Yu Shaochuan walked over and checked the crystals one by one. He found that most of them had only used a small part of their energy, and they were still glowing faintly. Only the groove closest to the valley was empty, and the ground was covered with the powder of the spirit crystal. It seemed that the energy of the spirit crystal had been used up. At this time in the Green Demonic Valley, Yu Shaochuan was looking around vigilantly. But apart from the strange green mist floating in the air, this place looked completely like an empty valley that had not been visited for a long time. There were lush vegetation and lush forests. At first glance it was quite refreshing and there was no sign of danger. As for the green poisonous gas floating in the air, Yu Shaochuan was not afraid at all. Instead, he felt that this color of mist was a bit like the haze that appeared in Songning City every autumn. It looked very familiar, and he could even increase his vitality by inhaling it. Before leaving, Wu Gang glanced at the woods on the other side of the valley again. He found that the second leader and others who escorted Tang Tang did not leave directly, but quickly set up a camp in the woods as if they were going to camp here. Well, this is the only entrance. I don't know if this guy's luck is good or bad. He actually went in just like that. Wu Gang nodded and said with some emotion. After Tang Tang nodded, the old man gestured to the crowd. A few middle-aged men immediately walked to the teleportation formation, took out sparkling spiritual crystals and began to embed them around the formation. Yu Shaochuan thought that since he could not find Tang Tang in a short period of time, he might as well use these natural treasures to cultivate. It was rare to encounter such a wonder, so how could he not make good use of it? After Tang Tang and the others left, Yu Shaochuan quietly followed them. Wu Gang and Dou Ling were in a dilemma. They were afraid of Yu Shaochuan, the sissy with unpredictable strength, but they did not dare to stay too far away from Tang Tang. They were afraid that they would accidentally lose him and could not carry out the sect's order. Chapter 1502. As if a plant had found the most suitable soil for itself, Yu Shaochuan plunged into the valley in ecstasy. While inhaling the poisonous gas, he searched for Tang Tang and picked some heaven and earth treasures along the way. Yu Shaochuan had never been particular about cleaning or decocting the medicinal herbs. Basically, he stuffed all the spirit herbs into his mouth as soon as he picked them, and when he felt full he would concentrate on cultivating, transforming the medicinal power of the heaven and earth treasures into his own energy. Then he would continue to pick herbs, immersing himself in this endless cycle. At the same time, Shaoqin and Hongzhu, who had set out from Yaoxian County, finally arrived near the dark green demonic valley. According to the clues provided by Elder Nangong and Elder Heaven Ancestor, the two found a large lake. Looking at the rippling, mirror-like surface of the lake, which faintly reflected the surrounding scenery, Shaoqin couldn't help but be a little dumbfounded. Could this be the entrance to the dark green demonic valley? But no matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem like it. Husband Shaoqin, is this the dark green demonic valley? It doesn't look dangerous. Hongzhu, who was standing to the side, also asked in a puzzled tone, do you think that Elder Nangong was fooling us? Although this lake is indeed very beautiful, I don't see anything special about it. When Hongzhu heard Elder Nangong describe the dark green demonic valley to be so terrifying, he had thought that this place should be an extremely dangerous and terrifying place, but now it seemed that the environment was quite enchanting. This may be the periphery of the demonic valley, so there is no danger yet. We have to find the entrance first and enter the valley. Shaoqin raised his head and looked around. There were indeed many towering mountains in the vicinity, but the entrances were all blocked by dense forests, and it was impossible to enter them by relying on human strength. But where is the entrance? There is clearly only a large lake. Hongzhu curled his lips and looked around. The surroundings were deserted and looked like a primeval forest. Perhaps the entrance is at the bottom of the lake. I'll dive down and take a look. Shaoqin stared at the rippling surface of the lake and said to Hongzhu, you should carefully search this area. If you find anything strange, don't touch it. Wait for me to come up and take care of it. Okay, I'll definitely wait for my little brother Shaoqin. You'd better hurry up, I'll be scared if I'm alone up there. Hongzhu beamed at Shaoqin, not forgetting to tease him a little. Shaoqin scratched Hongzhu's nose, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After that, he took off his luggage and handed it over to her. After that, he jumped into the lake with a splash. First, he used his yuan qi to transform it into oxygen for breathing. After that, he opened his eyes, identified the direction of the lake, and swam straight to the bottom. Hongzhu followed his instructions and searched back and forth along the shore. She didn't dare to go too far, as she didn't know if some ferocious beast or cultivator expert would suddenly appear in this primeval forest and swallow her whole. After all, there were many similar places where treasures were hidden in the inner martial world, and there were all kinds of creatures guarding them. The higher the quality of the treasure, the stronger the guardian creature would be. After dual cultivating with Xiao Chen for a period of time, although Hongzhu had already become an expert at the peak of the nascent soul stage, there were still many things that she couldn't cope with. Therefore, as long as Xiao Chen wasn't around, she would be a little more cautious. At this time, Xiao Chen had already dived to the bottom of the lake and released his divine sense to search the entire bottom of the lake. But to his disappointment, he didn't find anything at the bottom of the lake other than some strangely shaped fish swimming around and the craggy rocks that littered the ground. Xiao Chen was a little unwilling to give up, so he continued to expand his divine sense to the bottom of the lake. But even after he had extended his divine sense to a depth of several dozen feet, he still didn't find anything. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what's going on? I came here according to the directions you and Elder Nangong gave me, but there's nothing here. Xiao Chen was a little disappointed. He didn't expect that he would find nothing after running all the way here. No, I can sense that there's a weak energy surge at the bottom of the lake, which means that the dark green demonic valley should be nearby. Elder Heaven Ancestor said in a deep voice, it's just that after thousands of years, some changes have taken place here, so the terrain is a little different from when I first came here. Then what should we do? As Xiao Chen asked Elder Tian, he did not forget to continue using his divine sense to scan the entire bottom of the lake. He wanted to see if there was anything else he had missed. Elder Heaven Ancestor also looked around with the help of Xiao Chen's divine sense. After a while, he seemed to suddenly find something and reminded, there's a stone at your feet, pick it up and take a look. Stone? Is that what you're talking about? Xiao Chen looked down and saw that his feet were full of gravel, but there was a stone about the size of a fist at the side. Xiao Chen bent down to pick up the stone and looked at it carefully. As expected, he found something strange. There were some strange patterns and lines carved on the stone which looked familiar. Xiao Chen frowned and tried to recall where he had seen it, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it. I see. Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly sighed, and his voice became a little heavy. It seems that there really is no entrance to this place because the entrance has been destroyed. What do you mean? Xiao Chen asked blankly. Elder Heaven Ancestor, please explain to me. Even if I die, you should let me know why I die, right? If I'm not wrong, this stone should belong to some kind of teleportation formation, and this formation is the entrance to the dark green demonic valley. Elder Heaven Ancestor said word by word. You mean? A thought suddenly flashed in Xiao Chen's mind, and he immediately looked up. Not far from the bottom of the lake, there were many small stones similar to this stone, scattered everywhere. They looked very ordinary and there was nothing unusual about them. Yes, maybe because too much time has passed and the plain turned into a lake, so the formation that was left here has also collapsed. Elder Heaven Ancestor paused, then added, maybe someone didn't want others to find this entrance, so they deliberately destroyed the teleportation formation. In short, you can no longer enter the dark green demonic valley from here, so you'd better think of another way. Alright. I guess that's the only way. Xiao Chen shrugged helplessly, quickly swam back to the shore, and looked for Hongzhu, who was still searching everywhere. Husband Xiao Chen, how is it? Did you find anything down there? Hongzhu came up to him with an expectant look. She had been looking around for a long time, but couldn't find anything, so she was feeling depressed. Chapter 1503. Upon hearing Hongzhu's question, Xiao Chen shook his head and gave a simple explanation of the Elder Heaven Ancestor's conjecture. He also showed her the stone with the pattern carved on it. Hongzhu did not expect that Xiao Chen would also come up empty-handed. She could not help but frown and ask worriedly, since there is no entrance here, where are we going now? Xiao Chen rubbed his chin and thought for a moment, then said, when I was on the flying sword just now, I saw a small town nearby. It doesn't seem to be too far from here. Why don't we go there and ask about the situation of the dark green demonic valley? Perhaps someone will know about it? Alright, I'll listen to you and do as you say. Hongzhu nodded. Xiao Chen summoned his flying sword and leapt onto it with Hongzhu in his arms. He then skillfully controlled the flying sword and sped toward the small town. After arriving at the small town, the two of them went around looking for shops and stalls to ask around. Soon they learned that the town was called Clear Moon Town and was located at the border. Due to the fact that the place was relatively remote and surrounded by high mountains and lofty ridges, transportation was inconvenient. Coupled with the fact that there were many poor people in the town and the lack of commercial development, there was no economic benefit to be had. As a result, Clear Moon Town had always been a lonely town and had never been incorporated into a prefecture. However, no matter how the two of them asked around, the people in the town seemed to have no idea about the dark green demonic valley and were unable to find any clues. Xiao Chen was not discouraged and continued to walk down the street with Hong Zhu. The two of them looked around to see if there were any locals who seemed to be more cultured. "Husband Xiao Chen, don't you think that girl's back looks rather familiar?" Hong Zhu suddenly pointed to the back of a figure in front of them and said, "Big sister, I think I've seen her somewhere before." Xiao Chen looked in the direction of Hong Zhu's finger and saw a girl who looked like a fairy walking silently in front of them. However, her Taoist robe was a little dirty and messy and her figure was a little down and out. Li Xian. Xiao Chen was stunned and blurted out a name. The Taoist robe of the person in front of him was too easy to recognize. There was no one in the cultivation world who dressed like this. When Li Xian heard someone calling her name, she subconsciously turned her head around, only to see a man and a woman standing in the middle of the road, looking at her in shock. Who else could it be but Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu? "So, Xiao Chen? And Hong Zhu? Why are the two of you here? Is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I?" Li Xian was immediately dumbfounded. When she saw the familiar faces of Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu, it was as if she had seen her closest family members. Tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes, and she was so emotional that she couldn't even speak clearly. "Yes, it's the two of us." Xiao Chen nodded with difficulty. The Li Xianer in front of him was much thinner and more haggard than when he had seen her in the inner martial world. It was obvious that she had suffered a lot after coming to the cultivation world. Xiao Chen's heart ached and he felt sad. He had so many words to say but he didn't know where to start. It was Hong Zhu who rushed over and hugged Li Xianer's slender waist. He took out his handkerchief and carefully wiped away the dust and tears on her face. Then he comforted her in a gentle voice, "Little sister Xian, don't cry. Looking at you, you must have been starving for many days, right? Why don't we find a place to have a meal with you first, then we can slowly talk." "Thank you, big sister Hong Zhu." Li Xian smiled through her tears and nodded. She was indeed about to faint from hunger. That was why she was so surprised when she heard someone call her name and turned around to see Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu. She even thought that she was hallucinating because she was too hungry. Hong Zhu supported Li Xian and casually found a restaurant with Xiao Chen. After the three of them sat down, Xiao Chen ordered a dozen or so dishes and asked the waiter to bring a few bowls of rice, which he placed in front of Li Xian. Xiao Chen wasn't in a hurry to ask about Li Xian's current situation. He planned to wait until she had eaten and drunk her fill before having a good chat with her. Looking at the table full of dishes, Li Xian no longer cared about her appearance. She picked up her chopsticks and wolfed down the food. Only after she had finished 3 bowls of rice and 2/3 of the dishes on the table did she put down her chopsticks in satisfaction and wipe her mouth. "Little sister Xian, eat slowly. Be careful not to choke." Hong Zhu hurriedly scooped a bowl of hot soup and placed it in front of Li Xian. After watching her finish the soup he asked, "Are you full? Do you want another bowl of rice? Don't stand on ceremony. If you're hungry just say it. It's fine." No need. Thank you, big sister Hong Zhu." Li Xian blushed. The two of them had seen her eating like a tornado just now. She felt very embarrassed. "Li Xian, how did you come to this place? Are you alone? Why do you look so down and out?" Xiao Chen finally couldn't help but ask 3 questions in one breath. Li Xian's face darkened. She sighed softly and said faintly, "AI, it's fortunate that I met you this time. Otherwise I would definitely starve to death here. I wonder how Xiaoyu is doing now. She was captured by a group of bad people and I didn't have the ability to protect her. I'm really too useless." "Yeah, Xiaoyu. So you came in together with her. What happened? How is she?" Xiao Chen was shocked and hurriedly asked. An ominous premonition emerged in his heart. "After Nye Xiaoyu and I came in, we stayed on the mountain for a period of time. Then we prepared to go to the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to work. I didn't expect that she..." Li Xian briefly explained how she and Nye Xiaoyu went to the Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce to register and then Nye Xiaoyu was captured that night. Hearing this, Xiao Chen couldn't help but secretly regret. If he hadn't agreed, Nye Xiaoyu wouldn't have come to the world of cultivation through the teleportation array. He didn't expect that he would harm her in the end. "After that, I was penniless and could only work to earn some spirit crystals. Then I went around looking for Xiaoyu." Li Xian continued, "After that I came to Qingyue town. In the end I couldn't find her and had spent all my spirit crystals. When I wanted to work, I realized that there was no Chamber of Commerce here. Before I left, I met you. Did their immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce? Why do they have so many troubles? Could it be that Nie Xiaoyu's disappearance has something to do with them? Xiaoqin frowned and muttered softly. He had a strange feeling in his heart, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Husband Xiaoqin, I don't think it's a problem with the Chamber of Commerce, right? Hong Zhu raised a different opinion. Didn't we meet people from that Chamber of Commerce before? No one came to capture us. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.